The same can be addressed by the moderator. As we begin our day 2 session with the inaugural session, a new era of Indo-US relations, may I request Mr. Rajiv Poddar, President, IMC Chamber of Commerce and Industry, to present the welcome address. Over to you, Mr. Poddar. Sir, you're mute.
Is it okay now? Is it okay now?
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you. Honorable Shri Nitin Gadkari ji, Mr. Rajesh Subramaniam, Mr. Swadesh Chatterjee, Dr. Mukesh Agi, dignitaries, ladies and gentlemen, a very good morning to friends in the US and a very good evening to our friends in India. I extend a warm welcome to all of you to today's inaugural session of IMC's Indo-US Partnership Vision Summit 2021, a new era of Indo-US relationship. I am grateful to our Honorable Shri Nitin Gadkari ji, Union Minister of Road Transport and Highway, Micro, Small and Medium Enterprise, for sparing his valuable time for being with us today. Gadkari ji, our dynamic minister, is a man of prompt action. He is always open to ideas and ready to implement them at remarkable speed. A special thanks to Mr. Rajesh Subramaniam for joining us today. He is known for his global vision and wide business experience. We are also honored to have with us Padma Bhushan awardee Mr. Swadesh Chatterjee and Dr. Mukesh Agi, who have always championed for closer ties between India and the US. Today, India and the US demonstrate a global strategic collaboration at the back of common ambition, values, and interest. The trajectory of the efforts made by the two nations in the recent time to align with each other's interest has been simply remarkable. Over the years, the US-India relationship has become increasingly multifaceted, covering cooperations and presenting opportunities in diverse new areas such as retail, defense and security, digitization.
I cannot hear Rajiv is talking, but I cannot
science, space technology and application, media and entertainment and healthcare. Yesterday, we had a scintillating and thought-provoking session ranging from health, regional bilateral cooperation, emerging tech and entertainment with eminent experts. Today's discussion will give insights on finance and investment, defense and homeland security, and the knowledge economy. We are truly honored to have ambassadors, His Excellency Mr. Taranjit Singh Sandhu and His Excellency Ambassador Mr. Tim Romer give the valedictory addresses. Gadkari ji has relentlessly been working on infrastructure, road transport, and MSME development in India. The growth in infrastructure development over the next years will be driven by rapid urbanization, rising income, and economic prosperity. India is expected to become the world's third largest construction market by 2022. The one of its kind National Infrastructure Pipeline envisages nearly $1.5 trillion investment on infrastructure projects by 2025. The same holds huge investment and cooperation opportunities between the US and India. India has the second largest road network in the world, spanning a total of 5.89 million kilometers. The Government of India has set a target of constructing roads worth $213 billion in the next 2 years. A robust ecosystem comprising of favorable reforms in India has opened a plethora of opportunities for partnership with the US, primarily in funding, resources, technology, and knowledge sharing. India has approximately 63 million MSMEs, and there are approximately 30.7 million small businesses in the United States. Thanks to the technology and moving towards one global market, there is a huge potential for cooperation and collaboration among the MSME sector. The recent collaboration between India and the US with an aim to launch India-US Climate and Clean Energy Agenda 2030 partnership on green collaborations, battery energy is a key milestone towards an inclusive and resilient economic development. This partnership will mobilize finance and speed clean energy deployment, demonstrate and scale innovative clean technologies needed to decarbonize sectors, and build capacity to measure, manage, and adapt to the risk and climate-related impacts. Our Honorable Prime Minister Modi ji has aptly said, the 21st century presents both unprecedented challenges as well as opportunities. The Indo-US relationship can leverage the vast potentials of our people's unique strengths and opportunities to provide global leadership for the benefit of the entire humanity. Let's build on our unique strengths through collaboration and capitalize on our opportunities and ties to unlock promising possibilities towards an inclusive and sustainable future for all. I once again welcome you all and thank you for being with us. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Poddar. I now request Mr. Swadesh Chatterjee, Chairman and Co-founder, US-India Friendship Council, to present the opening address. Over to you, Mr. Chatterjee. Thank you, Mr. Poddar. I now request Mr. Swadesh Chatterjee, Chairman and Co-founder, US-India Friendship Council, to present the opening address.
Yeah, your turn, sir.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Rajiv, for giving me the opportunity to give the opening remarks for the inaugural session of the IMC's Indo-US Partnership Summits. At the outset, I would like to humbly offer my condolences for the individuals' human sufferings that COVID-19 has inflicted upon India's people. Many, if not most of you, have a family members, your friend or colleague who has been afflicted by this terrible disease. The Biden administration and the American people and businesses and citizens working non-stop to provide the assistance which is required. The United States has an unshakable commitment to help India to get through these most difficult times. I was asked to speak about new era of US-India relations. The suggested topics or title of my remarks probably has something to do with the new administration in Washington, President Joe Biden and Vice President Kamala Harris. I can tell you that President Biden and Kamala Harris will build a stronger, steadier US-India partnership and take our friendship on new heights. Over my lifetime, US-India relationship has been changed. In my early days in this country, India was viewed with suspicion, a non-aligned country that they think should be managed, and India was sometimes viewed as suspicious. But In the geopolitical chess game, it was a country to be managed, not partnered with. The rise of India's economic power and America's interest in balancing China, reinforced by the strong activism of Indian American community, has fundamentally altered the US-India relationship. Indian Americans worked tirelessly to make sure that President trips to India in the year 2000 is a success. Indian American community works very hard also to make sure that United States lifts the sanction imposed on India after its nuclear test. But our most prominent success as Indian American community was the US-India Civil Nuclear Agreement in 2008. In 2006, during the fight to make US-India civil nuclear deal a reality, Joe Biden outlined his vision for the relationship. Biden said, quote, "My dream is that in 2020, the two closest nations in the world will be the India and the United States," unquote. Biden has acted to make this dream a reality and will continue to do so as the President of the United States. I can personally testify that US-India civil nuclear deal would never have become a reality without Joe Biden's leadership. At that time, I had the honor and privilege to work closely with Joe Biden and the now Secretary of State Tony Blinken. I saw up close the forceful, steady, principled leadership of Joe Biden. As ranking member of the Senate Foreign Relations Committee, he looked implementing legislation that was almost dead on arrival in Congress, molded it into an acceptable language, and led the effort to get a bipartisan support to make the deal as a reality. You know, I wrote a book called Building Bridges. In that book, I wrote, quote, "For us Indian Americans in the movement of the civil nuclear deal, the campaign was always about much more than just a nuclear power or nuclear weapons. We were we are not a lobbyist for India. We were not the lobbyist for the nuclear industry. There is a fundamental misunderstanding between the two countries that we loved, and we realized that we are in a unique, well-placed position to fix it. We lobbied for an idea, a vision of what could be the deep and lasting friendship between the United States and India. I can tell you clearly the deal is a symbol of the US-India bilateral relationship reaching into new heights. As Vice President Barack Obama, Joe elevated two-way cooperation against old and new terrorist threats in India. He was a part of that administration's determination that a rising India should be a member of the reformed United Nations Security Councils. They worked together with Congress to make India as a major defense partner. But he and Vice President Harris now are committed to our countries doing so much more together. Let me tell you what is happening. And he believes strongly that in 100 days, they have turned focus to the relationship back where it belongs, to the people of India and the people of America. If you know, in the last 100 days at the Quad Summit, our leaders met for the first time and agreed to an arrangement to achieve safe and effective vaccine distribution. They also agreed to work together on climate change and double down on renewable energy partnership at last week's US hosted leadership summit in climate. The third area identified in the summit was the cooperation on critical and emerging technologies of the future. A related working group has already been formed. Well, the Secretary of State and the National Security Advisor were engaged in a tense and initial encounter with China. As most of you know, the Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin made India his first solo visit and received a warm and heartful welcome. Just followed by him, former Secretary of State and the Climate Czar of John Kerry also visited India and have a very fruitful dialogue with Prime Minister Modi. Due to the promise, President has already lifted his predecessor's freeze on high-skilled visas for Indian workers to bring their talent and creativity to the United States. That's not to say that our two proud, beloved nations that won't disagree. There will be challenges, there will be disagreement, and I think now, as because United States and India are considered themselves as a partner, so they are equal partner, not the senior partner and junior partner. So I strongly believe the fundamentals between the two countries are right, and they have a very bright future together. Now you can count on President to revive long neglected areas of cooperation. He's already begun to do so in a short period of time on public health, education, climate change, sustainable energy, the use of technology in job creating innovation, and democratic institution building. I am so excited to see the next 4 years progress under President Joe Biden, what they will achieve. One thing is for sure, that sky is the limit for US-India partnership. And thank you. Thank you for giving me the chance. I am very, very bullish about the relationship, and we are there. The community is not going to have the relationship slide anymore. The relationship is not between South Bloc and the foggy bottom of Washington. The relationship has nowadays lot more pillar, and we are there not to allow to slide it. There will be challenges, but it cannot go down. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Chatterjee. And ladies and gentlemen, without much ado, the moment you were waiting for, may I invite our respected and highly esteemed chief guest, Honorable Sri Nitin Gadkari ji, Union Minister of Roads, Transport and Highways, Micro, Small and Medium Enterprises, to present his keynote address. Over to you, Honorable Minister.
Thank you. Mr. Raju Poddar, President of IMC, Mr. Mukesh Agi, President of US-India Strategic Partnership Forum, Mr. Swadesh Chatterjee, Chairman and Co-founder of US-India Friendship Council, Mr. Raj Subramaniam, President and CEO of FedEx Executive Leadership, all distinguished dignitaries, guests, audience, and all my dear friends. It is an absolute honor to be speaking at the inauguration of the Indo-US Partnership Vision Summit and interact on the topic of new era of Indo-US relations. I would like to congratulate IMC and USI SPF for initiating discussion on Indo-US partnership, as this would be the most important and strategic partnership of the 21st century. It is my pleasure to take part in discussion with you and opportunities for collaboration in areas of education, space, science, finance and investment, health, infrastructure, pharma, emerging technologies, defense, IT, cyber security and entertainment. It is a partnership that could have profound impact on the dynamics of geopolitics and traditional Indo-US friendship. On a strategic front, our bilateral relationship has always ensured peace, prosperity, security, and stability across the both regions. Both countries are working to address contentious issues to make the partnership based on mutual trust, respect, and complementary. We stand hand in hand ever against terrorism and authoritarianism. The United States renamed its Pacific Military Command to the Indo-Pacific Command, and emphasizing the importance of the Indian Ocean region and India as its pivotal nation. India and the US have reached in principle agreement in the area of defense, security, energy and trade. In the new era of relationship, the national interest of India and the United States are converging, and there is growing confidence between the both administration that all outstanding trade issues will be resolved and major trade agreement will be signed soon. India has reached democracy, integrated demographic and cultural difference, and huge demand. But we both strongly believe and committed to the development of the society that is livable, workable, and sustainable for all. Policies like the National Infrastructure Pipeline (NIP) for 1925, 2019 and 2025 is the first of its kind, and government is exercised to provide world-class infrastructure to the citizens and improving their quality of life. Under the National Infrastructure Pipeline, there are more than 7,300 projects to be implemented at rupees 111 lakh crore, that is 1.4 trillion US dollar by 2025. It aims to improve the project preparation and attract investment into infrastructures like highways, railways, ports, airports, mobility, energy, and agriculture and rural industry. I always use this quote by former US President John F. Kennedy that American roads are not good because America is rich, but America is rich because American roads are good. This is the slogan which is already written in the wall of my office. So this is one of the inspiration, and today we are the highest in the world as far as the road construction is concerned. It is 37 kilometers per day. And that is really a great achievement for the country. Having the second largest road network in the world, the government has set a target of constructing road worth rupees 15 lakh crore, that is 212.80 billion US dollar in the next 2 years. The government has given a massive push to the transport infrastructure sector by allocating rupees 1,69,637 crore, that is US dollar 24.27 billion. Project with a length of over 50,000 kilometers are planned to be developed by National Highway Authority till 2025. Currently, we have record highway construction rate of 37 kilometers per day, which is further being targeted at 40 kilometers per day. And this coming year, I am confident that we will achieve this goal. The government is also permitting 100% foreign direct investment (FDI) in the road sector. Our government is developing 22 green express highway and access control corridors of the length of 7,700 kilometers at a capital cost of 3.32 lakh crore. From strategic importance and national security, the development of tunnels, long span bridges are taken on the large scale in the country. As per the Paris Climate Agreement, Government of India has pledged for reducing its carbon emission by 30 to 35% by 2030. It is important to share experience and learn lessons from each other and collaborate on the research and development and catalyze the private sector to invest in renewable energy. India is taking several steps for increasing renewable energy share through its ambitious target of achieving 450 megawatt renewable energy capacity by 2030. One of the largest such expansion plans in the world is already underway. India has a surplus of solar energy potential that we can use for electricity generation. India has played a key role in setting up the Coalition for Disaster Resilient Infrastructure (CDRI) and signed the International Solar Alliance. India currently has an import bill of rupees 8 lakh crore, and we aim to build a parallel economy of rupees 2 lakh crore for alternative fuel, that is biofuel. It is one of the priority for the government. We are focusing on the diversification of agriculture towards energy and power sector and are promoting the usage of alternative fuels such as compressed biogas, CNG, LNG, ethanol, and methanol. We are also making research on green hydrogen fuel cell, and we have collaboration with IITs and some research institutions. And I am confident in due course of time, we will achieve that goal to start green hydrogen as a fuel in India. My strong focus is to ensure the availability of ethanol fuel across the country consistently. We have rolled out the plan for 10,000 ethanol blend by 2022 and 20% by 2025. LNG can prove to be a sustainable future fuel. For long-term intercity buses and commercial vehicles like trucks, reduction in logistic cost would be significant. We aim to run 100% public transport buses, all two-wheelers and three-wheelers vehicles on electricity. We are making the lithium ion battery, 81% of the battery we are already making in India. And I'm confident that we are making the research on aluminum ion, zinc ion, steel ion, sodium ion, by which we are developing the chemistry, battery chemistry, and where I'm confident in due course of time we will have a good solution for that. The National Mission for Electric Mobility has launched the National Electric Mobility Mission Plan 2020 to invest 140 billion in the next 8 years for the development of electric infrastructure. Indian electric vehicle market could be worth around 14.5 lakh crore if the country achieves its 2030 EV ambitious, and for that India will need a cumulative investment of about 12.50 lakh crore. I have just launched a first ever agriculture tractor run on bio CNG and would be soon launching a tractor that is run on 100% electric. We are laying special emphasis on hydrogen fuel cell technology and other alternative battery technologies such as aluminum ion, sodium ion, etc., which can change the future of the automotive industry in the world. We are encouraging the usage of construction equipment machinery on biofuels. We have recently launched a JCB machine that runs on bio CNG to minimize pollution at construction sites. We have recently launched a voluntary vehicles scrapping policy, which will ensure that only fit vehicles play on the road. We invite the US to share their experiences and technology to roll out the vehicle scrapping process effectively in our country. And this is going to give a new boost to automobile industry. The present automobile industry's turnover is 7,50,000 crore. And by developing this technology on the different fuel like ethanol, methanol, biodiesel, bio CNG, electric, LNG, green hydrogen, I'm confident that in the next 5 years, we want to make Indian automobile industry is the number one manufacturing hub in the world. And that is the plan we are working. All the big brands which are already present in the world, all are present in India. They are making lot of export from India. And so India, there is a huge opportunity because of scrapping policy that is going to reduce the production cost because availability of the raw material like aluminum, copper, plastic and rubber will be easily available, and that can be a strength for that industry. My ministry is taking initiative to ensure the conservation of water like rainwater harvesting and artificial groundwater recharge system along the national highway. That is also the important work is already contributed by ministry. Also, the use of solar power is being made mandatory for all toll plazas. That is also equally important. And we are promoting the use of new alternative material and technology in road construction work. Flash, waste plastic, rubber, steel fiber, jute, coir, cold mix present, and perpetual pavement, recycle bitumen, and soil stabilization technology. Regarding the soil stabilization technologies, we can make collaboration with the US companies because there are a lot of good companies having good research in this field. The ministry has notified to add 8% waste plastic or rubber in the modified bitumen for road, service road, and in bridge construction work, which is very important for an environmental point of view. We are looking at ways to reduce the use of cement and steel in road and bridge construction, and the new technology is being adopted by which one can avoid the use of steel and cement. We firmly believe that waste to wealth and waste to energy is one of the important suitable solutions to tackle the environmental issues. We frame the green highway policy where plantation has been carried out along the highways to save ecology and environment. The transplantation technology needs to adopt to save the existing old trees. We have successfully transplanted 12,000 trees in Dwarka Express Highway in Gurgaon, and where 84% is the success rate. There is the requirement of implementation of green building technology to tackle the climate change issues. Government is developing 35 multi-modal logistic park with cold storage facilities, 15 international stations, wayside amenities, highway needs, and smart bus ports. I am also working on the development of advanced transport solution like the electric highway, broad gauge metro rail system, road train bus, cable car, ropeway, funicular rail, and seaplanes. US has expertise and intelligent transportation system. The artificial intelligence technology IoT, GIS, GPS-based technology, automation tools, and robotics, it can play an important role in Indian infra development and digital transformation. MSME sector has the potential to contribute 50% to the GDP and around 60% to the export market. I am also responsible for this, and this is the highest priority for the government of India. We aim to learn from each other's success stories to enhance our mutual knowledge as two great nations. And I always say the conversion of knowledge into the wealth is very important. This is the future. So innovation, entrepreneurship, science, technology, research, skill and successful practices. That is, we name it as knowledge, and conversion of knowledge into wealth and conversion of waste into wealth. These are the two most important philosophy. And as far as US is concerned, I know that there is a lot of opportunity for both the country to having collaboration for that, because the knowledge is the power, and already in the software industry, the Indian engineers proved their mettle. Already they have stand in the whole world having the highest reputation as a software engineer. In the end, I am confident that India is becoming global investment destiny and supply chain alternative in the new normal era. With a huge market and intellectual youth power, India is the fastest growing economy with the ample amount of opportunity across the all sectors. Our government is committed to providing a flexible environment and favorable policy framework, time-bound decision-making process, and well-developed public institutional capacity, and a transparent ecosystem for better ease of doing business. I will stop here and would be happy to interact further on collaboration opportunities. Thank you very much. Namaskar.
Thank you for that dynamic speech, Honorable Minister, and Namaskar. I now invite Mr. Rajesh Subramaniam, President and Chief Operating Officer of FedEx Corporation, as the panelist, along with Honorable Minister Shri Gadkari ji. To moderate the session, I hand over to Dr. Mukesh Aghi, President and CEO, US India Strategic Partnership Forum, along with Honorable Minister Shri Gadkari ji. Just a note, ladies and gentlemen, due to time constraints, we request you to download the detailed profile of all the speakers in the lobby area. Thank you. Over to you, Mr. Aghi.
Thank you, Shri Nitinji. Namaskar from Washington, D.C. And thank you for your opening remarks. And Raj, welcome. Raj is the President and Chief Operating Officer of FedEx, the largest transportation company in the world, with a revenue of almost $79-80 billion. And he's also a member of USISPF board. So it's both honored to have both of you on the call. I'm going to get into question session. We have approximately, I would say, 27 minutes. And so I'm going to ask my first question to Shri Nitinji. American companies are looking for investment in infrastructure. And India needs to spend, as you mentioned, over $1.4 trillion in investment into infrastructure to build the country moving forward. Where do you see opportunity for American companies, and what would be your advice to American companies as to look at India as a destination of investment?
Actually, frankly speaking, that there is a huge opportunity for investment in infrastructure. In airports, ports, railway stations are now developing, broad gauge metro rails, then public transport on electricity. That is the new technology, ropeway, cable car, funicular railway, where I am the in charge for all these things now, because Prime Minister is giving me the special responsibility for this. And the most important thing that where the success story is there, that is the road infrastructure. I am telling you, my toll income is presently still that COVID is there. It is increased by 10,000 crore. At the end of March, our income come to 34,000 crore per year. And now we have, in next 4 to 5 years, we will reach it up to the 1,34,000 crore per year. So we are the AAA rating company, NHI, and we are getting already a lot of good investment from Australia, from Canadian pension funds, different institutions from whole the world now. They are keenly interested to develop to invest in Indian infrastructure, particularly in the national highway, the NHI. We have 4 or 5 types of model. One is build, operate and transfer, that is BOT. The other model is hybrid annuity, where the 40% of the investment is from the giving as a subsidy from the government, and 60% out of which 20% from the entrepreneur and 40% from the bank. The toll will be collected by the NHI. It is our responsibility, and we will return their money back with their interest, cost, and profit every year up to the end of the debt. So this can be a good model. The most important model is there, which I want to suggest you, that already we have toll projects. We are getting toll every day. So we will monetize this toll project for 30 years and we will return you back. Even we are ready to give you return daily, weekly, monthly, 3 monthly or 6 monthly. There is no problem because every day we are getting the toll and we will give the guarantee for that. But 100% we are not giving you guarantee if you are going with the route of making approval from finance and foreign ministry. I'm not that much interested because I don't have presently any problem about the resources. There is 100% already permission for investment in infrastructure. So you can invest in this project, we can monetize the project. But one thing is there, which is the problem which I am facing, that is regarding with the hedging. Now present interest cost, the Indian bankers are giving good support to us. We don't have any problem. But the present interest cost and your interest cost, by calculating the cost of hedging, there is a problem. And for giving money to NHI, I only take your money in rupees. So you have to make the hedging of that. That is the problem. So for that reason, you have to cover your investment with hedging and then invest into NHI. We are open for any model. Our balance sheet is very good. Our toll income is good. We can even make extra account for that. We are making green highways. Now I'm giving the example we have just completed. I'm going to inaugurate that Meerut-Delhi Express Highway. Actually, it was taking from Meerut to Delhi 4 hours, but now it is with the 45 minutes. We are making from Delhi to Dehradun 2 hours. We have started the road construction. Making Delhi to Haridwar 2 hours. Making Delhi to Chandigarh in 2 hours and Delhi to Mumbai in 12 hours. Already 50% of work has already completed. We are making Delhi to Jaipur as e-highway, where we are having discussion with Siemens and other companies. So everywhere there is a opportunity for technology, opportunity for investment. But some are the constraint where as far as the government procedure, where there are a lot of complications and we have to take the clearances. So my suggestion is, as a directly FDI, 100% already allowed for infrastructure investment. If anyone is interested, you can make direct collaboration with NHI and we can make it. That can be easy thing. Then other issues are airports, ports, then highways, power sector, green power, solar power, all of the sector. There are a lot of huge potential is there. India is the fastest growing economy. The internal rate of return is very good and you will get good returns as compared with USA. I am confident that you will get at least 2 times more returns in investment in India.
Thank you for those, I would say, a very strong pitch on investment and return on the investment. Let me go to Raj. Raj, FedEx, you have centers all over the world and you have been moving a lot of goods. In fact, you've been talking because USISPF, in partnership with the FedEx and other US companies, have committed to move 100,000 oxygen concentrator to India. And the shipments are arriving in with a lot of challenges. First one came in and a second one came in this morning with 1,000 concentrator. Raj, when you look at the overall scenario with the COVID issues, what are the challenges you're seeing and what are the opportunity? And then I have a follow-up question on that, and that is, when do you think and what do you need to set up FedEx India as a hub for the region also?
Well, thank you very much, Mukesh and Honorable Minister. It's wonderful to hear what you just talked about. FedEx has been in India for more than 25 years, and we have thousands of FedEx employees in the market. And we are the only transportation logistics company that operates out of 3 airports in India. And we also have a vast infrastructure within the country. So I was very excited to hear what the Honorable Minister just talked about in terms of speeding up the road networks, because that's going to be absolutely critical going forward in terms of moving goods in just-in-time mode and supply chain efficiency. So I thank you very much for those comments. Now, specifically regarding the activities on COVID-19, just because of the fact that we have the global infrastructure, we are, it's like when your neighbor's house is on fire and we are the one with the hose, we run to the neighbor and hand him the hose. We get a lot of people donate money and different things, but we have the unique ability to actually do something physically and make that happen. So, as you said, about 8 hours ago, 9 hours ago, a FedEx plane landed with thousands of oxygenators. Part of that is donation through the US ISPF program, others coming through other customers. And we have flights every day now coming in with those. Now, COVID-19 has been a very interesting time for FedEx because, from the very, very beginning of this process, we have been there's a sense of mission at FedEx about this is who we are and what we do. And we have been supplying healthcare supplies all over the world. We've been distributed hundreds of millions of vaccines around the world. And so we have the infrastructure. We are ready to do it. In fact, we feel it's our mission to do it, and we are, making a difference. And I think the first shipments have started arriving as of this morning, but this is the first of many. We in fact have a full charter airplane that FedEx is donating, and that's coming next week. And I opened up to the CEOs in America, and within minutes, that plane is already full. So, there's lots more to come. But again, we are very happy to do our part in solving the problem that there is in India right now.
Thank you, Raj. My question back to the Honorable Minister is, one of the key portfolio beside the road you manage is the micro, small, and medium enterprises. That, as you mentioned, is 50% of the GDP. But more important, that's the biggest job creator in the country. And what is your message? Because US companies end up coming, large companies keeps on coming, and they invest in large environment in the industry itself. What are your plans to encourage US companies to partner with the micro, small, and medium enterprises to grow that industry itself?
Actually, presently in our GDP, our MSME contributes 30% of the growth, and 44% of the export of our country is from MSME. Up till now, we have created 11 crore jobs. Now we have changed the definition of MSME also. That is also the good thing. And now we are expecting that we will increase this GDP contribution up to 50%. And 60% export of our country from the MSME. Now we have 115 aspirant districts which are socially, economically, educationally backward. And our GDP contribution in agriculture, rural, tribal, and the forest area is very negligible. But there are different type of raw material is available, just like biomass, bamboo, and other thing. Now there are a lot of technology where we can make bio CNG, which is very important for Indian situation because our import bill for the crude oil is 8 lakh crores. So now we are working on ethanol. America has got a lot of company, they have got ethanol. They are making from corn. Now government is giving permission to making ethanol from corn, ethanol from rice, ethanol from food grain. And the second generation ethanol that is from biomass. Even we can make bio CNG from biomass. By using biotechnology, we can make increase the productivity, and we can make the biogas from that. There is a good option for that. That bio CNG we can convert into LNG, and it can be used for the long-term transport. So exactly in the rural agriculture and tribal India, where the tourism has got a huge potential. Now I am in charge for this ropeway, cable car, funicular railway, seaplane. Amphibious seaplane is having the huge potential in India. Actually, when I was shipping and port minister, we name it as a flying boat, and we passed all rules and regulation for that. The Canadian company was one of the company was interested, but here is a technology where we can make this amphibious seaplane in India. The helicopters, there is a huge shortage, and tourism has got a tremendous potential. Now I'm making the road for Badrinath, Kedarnath, Gangotri, and Yamunotri all season road, and it is to be 75% work has completed. We are spending 12,000 crores on that. Now we can connect it by ropeway and cable car. Then we are making road for Manas Sarovar. 85% is completed through Pithoragarh from Uttarakhand. So now in Indian scenario, there is a huge potential for LNG. LNG is the fuel for the future. Actually, if a one diesel truck they can convert into LNG, the cost is 10 to 12 lakh rupees, but they will get their money back within 2 years. This is the economics which is very much beneficial. So for the long term transport for bus and trucks, we can use LNG. And LNG point of view, there is a lot of new technology which India needs. And that for that reason, there is a huge potential for that. So my suggestion is for different type of new technology in the transport sector. Then there is a potential for tourism also. There is a huge population in India that they are also, we need lot of big projects in tourism on BOT basis. Public private investment we can invite there, we can develop. Now I am giving you the example. I am making one tunnel in Jojila, that is Kargil, in the Kashmir, and the cost of the tunnel was first was it was 11,000 crore, but we have taken a lot of decision. 4-time tender was there, and ultimately we save 5,000 crore on one tunnel. Now there is a minus 8 degrees centigrade. My temperature is minus 8 degree. So my idea is to develop new Davos near to Kargil, that Jojila Pass, the land is available and it can be attractive spot for the world tourists. We can make resorts, hotels, and we can make the adventure sports there, ice sports, and like lot of things are there. We can even make it better than Davos. It's a new township there. Now I'm working on that. The work has already started. Someone is in USA if is interested to develop this type of hill station there, or making the some big hotels, restaurants, conference centers. There is a huge potential is available. India has got a tremendous potential for tourism. In the transport system also, on electric highway we are working. We are trying to make first e-highway from Delhi to Jaipur. And now within 6-8 months we were going to complete that highway, that is between Delhi to Mumbai, and the 60% of work has already completed. So there are different type of projects which are economically viable in the different sectors, from aviation, from solar energy, from bioenergy, biofuels, and some of the where I request you, all of you, that is our turnover in the village industry, that is Khadi, Gramodyog and village industry, is 88,000 crore. And actually, the most important priority for the government is develop area like tribal, agriculture, rural India, where we need more development, more investment. And if there are a lot of resources are available, on the basis of that, if the people who are ready to invest in agriculture or in agriculture products, agro processing industries, cold storage, pre-cooling plant, then making this economically viability is also because of raw material is available. By using best technology we can make it. I'm making this big highway in Chambal Express Highway, and it will start from Kota. It start from Etawah, from Uttar Pradesh, going near to by Chambal River, coming to Kota, where it is connecting to Mumbai Delhi Express Highway. Total area is backward. The distance is 4 hours from Delhi. And now idea is I'm talking with the Shivraj Singh Chauhan that you offer land with no cost to the big industry, which are going to create employment potential. And it can be only 4 hour distance from the Delhi. So there are lot of projects where you can make it. In a industrial cluster, you can make it in place in nearer to our green express highways. And where the land is available, you will get all type of clearances. We have smart cities, like we can make industrial clusters with smart villages. So there is a potential for it, and a lot of export is going on. So even India The skilled manpower is available, raw material is available, cost is very, very reasonable, and export potential is very good. As compared with China, also people are preferring India. So here is the potential that US investment can be useful for making more export from India using the good technology by which upgradation of the industry will be there. And by this new technology, we will create more jobs for the rural agriculture and tribal India. And that is the most important priority for the government.
Thank you. And you give us some ideas. We will reach out to Marriott, our member company, and see if they can set up a convention center, and then we can work with IMC to hold first India Davos summit up there. So we will work on that. Let me go to Raj. Raj, India, US are working a lot on sustainability, and there's a very strong close partnership on energy cooperation itself. And I know FedEx has focused a lot on trying to basically make its fleet, if I'm not mistaken, by 2040 carbon neutral. And that means that requires billions of dollars investment. Can you talk about that and how you can explore that partnership with India?
Oh, yes, thank you very much. But let me just first say something again about the comments that the Honorable Minister made regarding the infrastructure build. I think this is really exciting to hear because, as you know, we've built our business building networks, and as I hear the words that Honorable Minister is talking about, I can see a strong network building in improving infrastructure and reducing the logistics costs, which are really important, and efficiency. As you know, just to give you an example, in US, the logistics is about 8 to 10% of GDP, and I think that India is about 14%. I think with the infrastructure build, the cost of logistics can come down, and really the efficiency can go up. So I'm again very excited to hear the Honorable Minister talk about that. Now, going back to your question, Mukesh, about carbon neutrality, FedEx has 700 airplanes and 200,000 motorized vehicles. So we are very involved in making sure that we are energy efficient, and we announced this bold plan to be carbon neutral by 2040. And part of that plan, of course, is to make sure that on the vehicles front, we move towards electrification and other forms of energy that are much more earth friendly. And so again, I was very interested in what the Honorable Minister was talking about in terms of the work that's going on in India. So there's a huge opportunity for us to partner. Our demand is huge, as I can told you that in fact in terms of the infrastructure. So then that comes to airplanes, and we are working on sustainable aviation fuels. Of course, that's one thing, but we also realize that some of the answers to the hard questions are not there yet. So we actually funded $100 million investment into the Yale, and we started up a Yale Center for Natural Carbon Capture for R&D work. So once again, the minister was talking about R&D in India. I'm very interested in understanding that because we can actually collaborate, because some of the questions are still unanswered because of in Bill Gates' book, as he calls the green premium, the cost of the green alternatives are significantly higher, and it's going to be through truth, science, and R&D that we're going to be able to reduce that cost. So we're working on three fronts: making sure our operations are efficient. We're working with our customers to reduce their footprint so we have green supply chains. And three is working on innovation and R&D with like-minded partners to make sure we find answers to difficult problems that we haven't solved yet.
Thank you. I know the minister has to leave, and so I'm going to come to you. One is, Honorable Minister, when you look at the US-India partnership, yes, we talk about the infrastructure, which is physical infrastructure, but there's a digital infrastructure, and the economy is moving more and more in that. Any thoughts on that and your closing remarks?
Sir, I'm very much thankful for all of you. It's really a great opportunity for me. We need to establish new partnership, new relationship regarding using of different technology. We can bifurcate it into the different sector wise, and we can make the collaborations and joint ventures or upgradation of the technology. Regarding investment also in the MSME, we have now already making the policy, and we are in the funds of fund. The MSME, those who are having good track record for export, bank turnover good, and income tax return, there is no problem. GST is good. We are giving them rating, and on the basis of that, for capital market, we are supporting them 10 to 15% as equity from government side, and they are going to raise the equity from the capital market. My suggestion to all of you that they are giving good returns. Their share value is increased enormously, and actually there is a good opportunity. So I will request you, if you can invest in Indian MSME, that can be a golden opportunity. You can identify the track record, and we will certify on the basis of 4 track record. We can give them their credit rating, and they are doing excellent jobs, and it can be a great thing for them. With the investment and with the upgradation of technology, 100% they have got a huge potential for the export. So these are the field also where you can think about it. It is really a good start. I'm giving my special thanks to all stakeholders, all office bearers of both from Indian side and USA side. And whenever you need any type of cooperation from my side, from my ministry, it is, my doors are already open for all of you. I will try to help you. Thank you very much. Namaskar.
Thank you, Honorable Minister. You've been always open and available. And Raj, thank you very much. Wish you a good day and look forward to hosting you one day when things are better in Washington, D.C.
Thank you very much, Mukesh. Thank you, Minister.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. It was absolutely an informative session. It was an absolute pleasure to hear such some great minds talking. And now, ladies and gentlemen, it's time to move ahead to our next session. But before that, I would like to invite Dr. Mukesh Aghi, President and CEO, US India Strategic Partnership Forum, for closing remarks and vote of thanks.
Well, thank you. I just would like to say thank you to Honorable Minister and to Raj Subramaniam of FedEx. I think it's important to understand that the relationship between two countries is not just economic, it's not just geopolitical, it's also cultural, it's on the education front, it's on the energy security partnership itself. It is important when the current COVID crisis is going through India that US steps up. And what we're seeing is the US companies have really stepped up, and we are basically moving a lot of COVID necessary devices and medicine into India. You have to understand, friend in need is a friend indeed. And last year when US was in trouble, India moved a lot of medicines into the US itself. And now there's a time for reciprocity also. So we look, and beyond COVID scenario, I think the potential of the two countries is tremendous. As President Biden said, that we should be able to take the relationship to a $500 billion trade, which is at $142 billion. So we expect this partnership to go deeper, broader, both from a geopolitical perspective and also from an economic perspective. So thank you once again, and thank you to Honorable Minister, and thank you to Raj Subramaniam, President and CEO of FedEx. Have a good day.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Now it's time to move ahead with our next session, which is going to be yet more informative. The name of the next session is Finance and Investments. Startups and digital space open up a new avenue for exponential growth. The session focus would be on the opportunities for investment and finance. And before we move on, in the interest of time, ladies and gentlemen, I will request participants to please view or download all the speakers' profile from the lobby. And now, may I please invite our session moderator, Mr. Malachi Nugent, Vice President, Financial Services, US ISPF. And along with that, I would like to invite our wonderful panelist, Mr. Jaspal Bindra, Chairman, Centrum Group of Companies, Ms. Kaku Nakate, President and Country Head, India, Bank of America, Mr. Sanjay Nair, Chairman KKR India. And ladies and gentlemen, if at all you have any questions, a gentle reminder, all you need to do is just click on the Ask Question button, which is already there on your screen, and your question would be diverted directly to the moderator. And now, I would request the session monitor to kindly take over the session.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Good evening to all of our participants in India, and good morning to those of you who are in the United States. I'm Maliki Nugent. I'm the VP for Financial Services at the U.S.-India Strategic Partnership Forum, and it's my pleasure to be here with you today. I want to start by saying thank you to our host, IMC, for arranging this summit, and to our stellar panel, Sanjay Nair, Kaku Nakate, and Jaspal Bindra, for joining us today. So far, at the summit, we've heard some fascinating discussions about the Indo-US bilateral relationship, trends in the health sector, emerging tech, and entertainment. And so now we're going to turn our attention to opportunities in finance and investment in India today. We're going to focus on foreign capital flows, direct and portfolio investments, and trends in the banking sector. So as was just mentioned, I want to remind the audience that you can post questions for our panelists by using the Ask Questions button on the bottom right of your screen. And with that, we'll just go ahead and jump right into the discussion. So I'm going to start by turning to Sanjay and ask you to talk a little bit about foreign capital. Foreign capital is a critical driver of investment, and India has enjoyed strong capital inflows in recent years. This source of financing is going to be even more important in years to come as we face this challenging fiscal environment post-COVID. So, Sanjay, what trends do you see in foreign capital flows going forward in India, and how critically can the government best capitalize on these resources?
Thank you, everyone, and pleasure to be here. I hope you can hear me. I think that, given India's growth trajectory, leaving aside the COVID times and just looking ahead, India is going to have obviously the kind of growth that India can promise given the demographics, given the infrastructure spending, given the consumption uptick in the future. India is always going to be a country that's going to require a lot of investment capital. And now local savings in India, which are pretty high growth rates, are actually consumed quite a bit because you have to bridge the fiscal deficit. So there is always a big gap in investments and savings. And that's where foreign capital has played a very critical role in bridging that gap in India. If you look around for the last 5 years, foreign private capital, whether it's the venture capital or it's private capital in equities and in debt, has probably grown, I would say, about threefold in 5 years. That's tremendous growth. And just private capital alone in a year like last year, which was quite COVID struck, still brought in about $42 billion. So in other words, the point I'm making is that India is going to have a saving investment gap. India is a country where people feel comfortable in investing, given the growth opportunity, the consistency of the law, the value of the contract, and just the sheer entrepreneurial dynamism that Indian entrepreneurs demonstrate. I think India can attract a lot of foreign capital. One thing you have to keep in mind that foreign capital also comes in response to a robust capital market within the country. You just don't come in and get stuck there and you have no liquidity. And Indian capital markets have also come a long way. I'm sure Kaku will touch on that. Indian capital markets, both debt and equity, have come a very long way as well in terms of the infrastructure of it, the liquidity, the depth, and the width. So I think that's the other prerequisite to inviting more foreign capital besides giving returns. And the final thing we should talk about maybe in the second go round is the role of local capital, because you do need local capital also to be very robust if you want to invite more foreign capital. So maybe I'll stop there, but I think India is clearly a market where it's a destination, a natural one for flows from overseas. India needs it, and India is going to need it even more for the next 2-3 years. And then as capital markets deepen and local flows from local insurance and pension become more robust, I think that's when it takes two hands to clap. And I think it can be a very virtuous cycle and not just a pure dependence on one form of capital. But look, India has been very promising in the past. India has delivered the returns, and I think India will continue to deliver very big opportunities for foreign private capital.
Thank you. That's a great way to start the conversation. So let's turn to Kaku and ask you, Kaku, if you could comment a little bit on the development of the capital markets. The equity flows have been very, very strong in recent years in India. So share with us your perspective, if you would, on these flows and the opportunities created, for example, by privatization and the sale of public assets in India.
So thanks, and I fully chime in with what Sanjay said. It's a great place to be in. We have the ups and downs, but the potential to earn is huge, and the returns, I think over a period of time, whoever has remained here has always ended up making the right amount of money. But money has to be patient in India for it to really yield good return. So the capital markets have grown from strength to strength, but it is still not in line, if I may say, with the size of the 5 trillion economy that we need to grow. So we have had reforms, we have had opened up, InvITs and REITs have been the new additions on the street. In fact, Sanjay has been one of the big investors in InvITs, and he can talk about that. But now we are having public sector also really starting demonetization, which I think is a great step in the capital market. Like I was just seeing in the morning today, as we speak, $1 billion odd InvIT by Power Grid has been announced, and people are participating in it. So you are saying that the domestic guys are also getting interested in that. So on one hand, it's that pool of money. The equity markets have always been seeing money in India, and the results have been very good of the companies despite the COVID. And in fact, within emerging markets, India really stands out on the investments, and really given the growth opportunities, I think banking, technology, pharmaceuticals will continue to see good amount of traction. And finally, I'll say the markets which really kept us alive is the private equity again, and 40 billion have come in 2020. As we see at the start of the year, around 14 billion have already come in, and that's the patient capital. And the biggest thing that is really out there for us to capitalize is the China vacating the US corridors. More and more companies, if China used to get listed in US and get the capital, now it's for us and our regulators to sort out to see that our new unicorns can also get listed in the foreign markets to really unravel the value that they really due for and capture lots of pools of money which will help us in the growth strategy.
Great, thank you. Yeah, that's really an interesting idea too, to try to boost the Indian unicorns by giving them access to more and more of the global capital that's out there through listing overseas. It's something that I know the government has been looking into, and it's a conversation that I think really needs to move forward. Let's turn then to banks specifically, and I'll ask Jaspal to comment on sort of the transformation that's undergoing in the banking sector, with public banks consolidating, private banks growing. So what are the trends that you see in Indian banks as a credit provider and their potential going forward?
Yeah, thanks, Malachi, and happy to be here on this panel, especially with Sanjay and Kaku as well. Wanted to, I think the banks have been traditionally the leading provider of credit, both domestic and overseas capital. So that is been established. My own view is that they will remain so. I think all the supplements we get from private capital, from the capital markets, is great supplement and leverage. But I think the banks will remain so. And this is something I may not have said 3 or 4 years ago. But I think the steps that have been progressively taken by the government and the central bank recently. One is about, we always had a demand-supply gap in credit in India. It exists today. There's a very large unserved and underserved clientele. from a credit point of view, both in retail and in wholesale. But I think for the first time, there are serious efforts to create scale on the supply side. And you mentioned some of the things. The consolidation of the PSU banks is clearly one step towards that. I think the private sector banks on their own have shown that given enough time, they get a license. It takes an X amount of lead time, but over time they can build scale. And now we have at least 4 or 5 very large private sector banks which have only got licensed 20 plus years ago, and they've grown. I think the comfort that RBI has shown in issuing more licenses periodically, every 5 years now, more or less, has also helped because there are new small finance banks, there are new larger banks coming in. We made the first exception where a foreign bank has been allowed to take over a local private bank. That's a very new thing, and I think that's again building capacity and scale. And I think the most important thing is something which is in the making, and that's the review of ownership for new licenses. And if that went the way it goes in other countries in Asia and elsewhere, where deep pockets, irrespective of their existing business interests, with the good enforcement of arm's length can be achieved, then I think we will have another huge capacity add to the banking sector. So we feel from a capacity side, the government is doing a lot. The other place where we have been weak is on the accountability side, particularly in the public sector side, whether it is risk management, whether it's the returns, whether it's corporate governance. I think on all three, we are seeing some progress. I think we just saw some very recent news on, tenures of board members and CEOs, etc. I think that's a positive step in terms of governance. Clearly, on risk management, there is a lot of conversation around lots of things. But I think as we consolidate to larger units, we get foreign participants in those entities. I think they will be, by definition, there will be more accountability than if it was just 100% or largely government owned. So I think we are going to see some more on those. So I feel the combination of scale and accountability will keep the banking sector in the way it is as a potential to be able to continue to provide a very large part of the credit needs of the country. But there is still a lot to be done.
Thank you. Of course, the banking sector has undergone a lot of changes over the last couple of years as well, with several rounds of recapitalization, and there have been discussions on and off about the deposit insurance framework for banks, and also the bank resolution framework, which needs to be put in place and strengthened as well. So there's a lot of work to be done in the banking sector still, but I take your point that with scale and accountability, there's a lot of potential there as well. So thank you for that first round. And let me remind our audience that you can ask questions of our panelists in the chat, using the chat function in the bottom right corner of your screen. Let's take a look and talk a little bit about individual sectors, if we can. Where you see some of the growth going forward. Of course, in the United States, with the new administration, the new Biden administration, there's a strong push right now for investment in climate finance and sustainable technologies. And so, of course, there is a lot of discussion between our two countries about helping facilitate that in India as well, financing of green infrastructure, for example. And then, of course, the impact of COVID and the lockdowns and the impact over the last year has been very dramatic in a number of sectors. So, tourism, hospitality, travel, those are sectors that have been hit really hard. So if I could just put this out to our panelists, where do you see sort of the growth going forward, the rebound post-COVID, and then beyond that rebound? Where are the real opportunities for investment in India?
Okay, maybe I can start. I think clearly one area or two areas that we're finding a lot more capital requirement and capital coming in is infrastructure. and I would say the renewable space. In the infrastructure, if you look at it, the government has taken the lead for the last 2 years, which has really kept our economy going. With the kind of fiscal constraints that we face as a country, the government has done a very good job in terms of just taking that extra latitude and spending it in a very focused manner on infrastructure spend. However, it's not just the government's role to build hard infrastructure. They have to allocate towards many other forms of infrastructure. And I think the private sector would need to step in. And that process has started. And I think, Malachi, that segment is going to be a massive area of growth. And the way you do that is not only by co-opting the private sector, which I think feels a lot more confident today than what they felt 10 years ago, when policies could get reversed and there was a lot of uncertainty. They are happy to participate, but then comes the question of the source of capital. So I think that's where there are some recent reforms that have been announced, and there's a lot more to be done locally rather than invite again only foreign money into infrastructure, which is not a good idea because you don't have returns in dollars. It's mostly rupee cash flows. So that's where insurance and pension reforms, where the investable surpluses can be deployed in very long duration financing, both debt and equity, is very critical to co-opt the local savings to build Indian infrastructure. And I think that process has started. I think the government is absolutely seized of the situation. They need to just get few of the regulations lined up and aligned. And just recently, last week, we saw the insurance regulator allowing insurance surpluses being deployed into AA and better rated InvITs in debt instruments. They had already allowed equity units, but now even the debt instruments. If you just see the role the mutual funds have played in the equity and debt markets, I mean, imagine if you open up insurance and pension money in India to go into, pretty safe instruments, which have recently been innovated, like the REITs and InvITs in India. I think that is the massive area of growth. And you will also attract foreign capital there as well. So I would say if I had a single point agenda, that would be the one I would drive. Democratize the ownership of infrastructure ownership. As much as possible should be retail investors in the long run. They reduce the lot size also, which they have done. And they're probably going to do it, hopefully do it even more. And that's how you crowd in the capital. Besides just crowding in the private sector entrepreneurs, you also need to crowd in local capital. I think that's the next thing that we need to focus on. But that's a big area of growth. And the same thing can happen in renewables and InvITs and REITs. And, India needs many more of these instruments for high net worth and retail to deploy their savings, and not just, in bank fixed deposits and government securities.
So tapping existing pools of capital for long-term investment in infrastructure is certainly high priority. Kaku or Jaspal, do you want to comment on the sectors that you see going forward?
Yeah, can add on I think one thing the government did before really the COVID really came down on us for the second wave was really, we saw the success of the first PLI, which was on mobile manufacturing, and that really attracted so much of the FDI and the corporates. And of course, the bank capital, which Jaspal said, followed it. And you can today see Apple manufacturing in India and Samsung, Galaxy, and they're not only going to manufacture for India, but it's also for the world, which then created an import-related market into an export-related market over the next 5 years while meeting the internal demand. Similarly to that, Maliki, they had announced 11 more sectors which were promising, like the EV, the battery, the renewable solar, textiles, white goods, and few others. Some of these are very promising and, can be really pushed upon. People are a little worried to invest in a COVID-related environment, but I am aware that people are looking at China +1 strategy, and that's the strategy where you will see. And the other one which has really seen a lot of traction is the APIs. The pharmaceutical APIs is one sector which has suddenly grown from strength to strength. And the specialty chemicals, we have almost become the one big supplier to the world besides China on these. So these are kind of newer sectors which still will have to substitute and grow together with the infrastructure. But all of this will bring in foreign corporates and foreign capital with it. And I think we have laid down the foundation with lower taxation to lure them in the right spirit. Ease of doing business still needs to be continued to be worked with. And I think the efforts have to be ongoing on a continuous basis, especially on taxation.
Thank you. And Joshua, let me give you the opportunity to comment too, if you'd like.
Yeah, I think Sanjay and Kaku have covered the big spots there. Clearly, we can foresee that ESG is going to become a big thing in the future. How much of that plays a role in our markets, we'll have to understand and see. But logically, it should be a big part of our markets as well. And I think besides that, there's a payment infrastructure, which is still at a very nascent stage in India. I think there's huge potential in the payments build out of the infrastructure first, and then hopefully value creation from there as well.
Great, thank you. So we have a few questions that have come in from the audience. So let me just put this first one out to the group. The question is about why banks are shifting and promoting retail lending over industrial lending, and what the government should be doing to encourage banks to lend more to industry. Gospel, maybe you could start off on that one for us.
Yeah, I think we've seen banks now. Sorry, I shouldn't be saying we. I've seen banks now for 30 plus years, and they just naturally flow into the most convenient spot they can get to from a return potential, optics presentation for shareholders. And yes, there was a cycle when we had all the challenges with the wholesale side of the business, and it obviously started with 2008. And then it sort of stayed on for a few years after that, etc. And it was only logical that people started finding growth much more easy to come by. Eventually, it's the growth story. And if growth comes easier from retail, that's what did. But actually, in that process, some people hit the gold mine, with the use of technology. Because when Bajaj Finance can do a transaction of $1 at a profit and turn around in 2 seconds, a credit decision. I mean, that is an achievement that not everybody achieved, but the ones who did. So I think even in retail, there is a mixed picture out there. But clearly, the initial thrust towards retail was more as the opportunity was not as bright in the wholesale for that period of time. And then, of course, retail continues to be still a very large thing. I still believe that the real prize in retail is at the bottom of the pyramid, and most of the action has happened in the really upper end of the pyramid. And it is largely about being able to deliver what Bajaj Finance has done. If more people can deliver that kind of cost efficiency and profit at that low ticket item, then clearly there is no stopping. I mean, you don't have to worry about competition. You can just do it on your own. And technology obviously will play the role to make that happen, I suspect.
Great, thank you. So we have another question, this one directed to Kaku, asking if you could elaborate a bit more on India's advantage in the US-China relationship and how India can position itself and how its regulators can really advance the agenda to build a $5 trillion economy.
So, as you really saw, the growth came into the Chinese companies, and they have grown from strength to strength. They have been able to attract all pools of capital, and they had a lot of listed companies into the US, because when you have negative flows or negative, the revenues are positive but negative EBITDA, US understands that pretty well. So from a valuation perspective, they were able to position. And today, if you really see, some of their models have become par excellence even beyond some of the US companies, and they've found a niche for themselves. And then the wealth in the country has grown, which has supported growth, their strength to strength. And today they've become mega companies. India is also well positioned. We have very smart companies on the ground. We have one Nika here, as you know, and you have Dream 11, and you have Zomato. You can see all of these are models in their own right. And, they have actually catered to also all livelihoods of people and brought in newer ideas which are very different from US, very different from China, appealing only to the class of people. We have 37 unicorns in the last, and I think this year we will touch 100 by the end of the year. And for this, with the regulators, if we can work out on the cross-border listing guidelines, if I may say, and allow the listings to be there on the New York market or on Hong Kong, the ways that they can attract capital, it would definitely help. The other route that has become open is the SPAC route, and I can share with you the success we had with one SPAC, which was Renew. Renew is one of our really good companies on renewable space, a world leader in many rights in the top 10 companies. But there was a patient SPAC which was raised in the US, RMG, that invested in Renew. And today, Renew has been able to raise just private capital up to the tune of around 800, and it'll go up to 1.2 billion when it gets listed on the exchange. And it's pride for India that the first renewable listed SPAC anywhere in US is going to be an Indian company. So this would be even more fruitful if we could sort out measures like ESOPs for the people on ground. They cannot participate in this because the capital was offshore. It was easily possible. So if we can just, undo some of these things and make things easier, I think we could have a lot more pools of equity capital coming in, which means there is no debt. It really goes to the growth of the country and gives expertise, or you can develop more models on startups. That is what I meant by trying to really position ourselves on a place where is now vacant because China companies are not being able to list more in the US or are moving away.
That's great. Thank you very much, Kaku. So unfortunately, we're out of time. I feel like we could go on for much longer discussing these issues. But the key takeaways from our discussion for me are India really needs to focus on continuing to develop its local capital markets, tap into those sources of long-term patient capital that are out there, watch the infrastructure space, pharmaceuticals, tech, supply chain investments, and really focus on supportive regulation, ease of doing business, the sorts of things that will really bring more and more people into the capital markets as well, and really facilitate this kind of investment. So I want to thank all of our participants, our panelists, for your time today, for sharing your expertise and your insights with us. And I think we wrap up there. It's 10 o'clock. So I will hand it back over to the host. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you. Pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you everyone, all our wonderful panelists, and Mr. Malashi Nagar for moderating the session. It was an absolute pleasure. And now, ladies and gentlemen, it's time to move ahead to our next session, which is going to be extremely exciting and delighting. Ladies and gentlemen, our next session is Defense Homeland. For defense and internal security and counter-terrorism, India and US collaboration in defense and homeland security can play a vital role for achieving peace and prosperity. So this session will discuss how to achieve much broader defense and security partnership between India and US. Ladies and gentlemen, I would just like to give you a gentle reminder that in the interest of time, I would request all my wonderful participants to once again please view or download all these speaker profiles from the lobby. And now, please allow me to invite a moderator for the next session. Mr. S.P. Shukla, Chairman Mahindra Defence, Mahindra Aerospace, Mahindra Sanyo Steel, Mahindra CIE Automotive Limited, etc. And our panelist for today, Mr. Ravi Nirgudkar, Managing Director, BAE Systems India, Mr. Salil Gupte, President, Boeing India. And ladies and gentlemen, if anyone would like to ask any question, all you need to do is just click on the button that you see on the screen which says Ask Question, and the question would be directly to the moderator. And now, it's a humble request for the moderator to please take over the session. Thank you, sir.
Thank you so much. Appreciate the introduction to all three of us. I would like to begin by saying something about long-standing cooperation between the two largest democracies in the world, India and US. Our bilateral relations have developed into a global strategic partnership based on shared values and increasing on bilateral, regional, and global causes. India and USA are natural partners, being the largest democracies. Both have shared values and interest, which has seen a growing consensus on several bilateral matters and trade that has resulted in strengthening of ties between the two nations. At the outset, we must recognize that President Biden's administration and Government of India have already established close contact and are already beginning to work together on many areas of mutual interest for greater good of the mankind. Bilateral trade between India and US has reached a record $146 billion in 2019. When we take both goods and services together, US is the largest trading partner of India. Within that, if we look at defense relationship, it has grown dramatically in past few years with increase in defense trade, joint exercises, personnel exchanges, cooperation in maritime security, counter-piracy operations. Our defense ties have emerged as a major pillar of India-US strategic partnership. Since the signing of new framework for defense cooperation in 2005, both our countries have made remarkable strides in strengthening our defense relations. And this got further reinforced in 2016 when US recognized India as a major defense partner to facilitate technology sharing to a level commensurate with that of allies and partners. 3 and 4 foundational agreements have been signed between the two countries, which will get discussed during the course of our panel discussions. In the recent past, we have seen that defense-related acquisitions from US have crossed $21 billion. That is what brings me to other members of the panel today. Both the companies whose chiefs in India I have pledged have been major participants in building the partnership between the two countries. As you rightly introduced earlier, Mr. Ravi Nirgudkar is the Managing Director for BAE Systems in India. BAE Systems is a technology and innovation leader specializing in defense, aerospace, and security solutions. Other friend is Salil Gupte. As the luck would have it, Mahindra has a close working partnership with both the companies. Boeing needs no introduction in India. Mr. Gupta is Boeing's country manager, integrating and advancing Boeing's activities across a spectrum, commercial airplanes, Boeing Global, as well as Boeing Defense, Space and Security. Having introduced my esteemed friends in this defense industry, I would like to kickstart the conversation. Let me begin first with Mr. Gupta. Salil, Boeing has been a supporter of Make in India for a long time. Of late, we have heard a lot about fighter aircrafts and other defense-related activities. How do you think strategic partnership model will impact the Indian ecosystem? Do you think it can bring about a transformation in the ecosystem in India?
Yes, thank you very much, Shukla, for the question, and it's wonderful to be here with all of you. I hope I'm audible clearly. It's clearly the goal of strategic partnership model, and under the new defense procurement procedures, other models like Buy Global, Manufacture in India, and then the overall concept of Atmanirbhar Bharat. The goal is to drive the development of a defense industrial ecosystem in India from lowest complexity all the way to highest complexity components, and then eventually into platforms themselves, full aircraft itself in private industry. That's clearly the goal. And the question is, how do you get there? And in our view, you get there step by step. Over the last 10 to 12 years, Boeing has gone from making very simple, forged or simple metallic and non-metallic parts, now all the way up into some of the most complex composite parts that are absolutely critical to an aircraft. Our joint venture that we have here in Hyderabad manufactures the Apache fuselage, not just for India, but the Apache helicopters for the world start in Hyderabad. This is for the US Army and the Indian Army eventually, and many other customers around the world. So that is accomplished by doing a few things, in my view. First, it is developing the capabilities in large suppliers and mid-sized suppliers. And we have over 250 Indian companies in our supply chain today. Over the last 5 years, we've quadrupled the size of our sourcing from India from $250 million to $1 billion US, and we're continuing to grow from there. And so you move up the value curve and you continue to bring along new suppliers and increased capabilities, because once a supplier signs on with you and they perform, you want them to do more work and more work and more work. This is the lesson of our relationship with companies like Mahindra. This is the lesson of our relationship with many smaller companies as well. And I'll give you an example. One of our MSMEs that we started working with 5 years ago has twice in 5 years won the Boeing Supplier of the Year award given to some of our best suppliers around the world, which is just a shocking achievement. And it shows the level of quality and capability that is available here in India. And so that's the second element that I would say. I mentioned the large and mid-sized companies and bringing them up the value curve. The other element is recognizing that the MSMEs are the next generation of great manufacturers in India. And in order for the Indian ecosystem to develop via strategic partnership model and transform, you need to develop these MSMEs. And so we at Boeing work with 50 MSMEs out of our 250 companies here, trying to develop their capability. Many of them are actually in manufacturing today at scale, but they're in other industries. They might manufacture for the automotive industry, right? And so we develop capabilities such as making sure they understand how to work with aerospace grade materials, how to, what the requirements are for quality and safety in the aerospace field, because with airplanes there's always a different standard of quality and materials than there are in pretty much any other field for obvious reasons. So all of those types of things are activities that we engage in with the MSMEs. And that is the other part of building the ecosystem and transforming the supply chain, as you noted.
Thank you, Salil. I think you brought up the point that strategic partnership model is not just about partnership between two large companies. It will help in developing the entire manufacturing ecosystem in the country, and a large part of it will be driven by MSMEs, where Boeing already has such a vast experience of having done so, which makes it possible. I think you said the number 50. Almost 50 are already working with you, and that is what will build the technology base, build capabilities of the manpower, and help us together to have a vibrant ecosystem which can undertake making of larger platforms. Again, BA very long relationship with India. If I remember right, is goes back 5 or 6 decades when BAE has been involved in various defense programs of our country. I would also like to highlight for our audience, BAE has been one of the first to bring in Make in India factor in a G2G program, in an FMS program. Full credit goes to BAE for doing so. I was keen to know, how would you like to highlight your manufacturing experience, assembly experience in the country? How have you experienced the Indian capabilities? Anything you would like to share with the audience?
Thank you, SP, and thank you for that introduction and also the lead-in. Good morning and good evening, everyone. This is Ravi Nirgudkar. I'm the Managing Director for BAE Systems here in India. And I believe Mr. SP Shukla were talking about our M777 contract that we received in 2016. As he said, the Make in India and Atmanirbhar Bharat are not new concepts for a company like ours. Even though it was a G2G FMS contract, we were required to establish a assembly integration facility as well as monitor or maintain a Pokhran acceptance test firing capability. And we could not have done this without able partnership with someone like Mahindra. And so it kind of is a epitome of the fact that we are here not only to do our or to work on our contract, but also to partner with the Indian partners as well as MSMEs. As part of this effort, we are also working with about 80 suppliers, and we are working on doing technology transfer as well as knowledge transfer. And so even though Make in India and Atmanirbhar Bharat could be something that we've been hearing for the last few years, this is something that we've been supporting and participating for more than 4 to 5 years. So, we are very happy to say that we have a world-class paperless facility that we have developed as part of this effort, and we are very much on track to provide or deliver our customer requirements as per their expectations. So, thank you, SP.
a supplementary, if I may ask a supplementary, how has been your experience during the COVID year of last 1 year, year and a half? How has been operations in India?
So SP, in regards to what we are doing in the COVID era, is as I mentioned to you, it's a paperless facility, and so many of the work we are able to do virtually, and which is something that's also a state-of-the-art facility feature, as well as we've been able to meet our customer expectations. Even during the COVID effort. So we're taking every precaution to make sure that our employees and our partners' employees are safe. But the overall the processes and things that we put in place are really helping us manage the COVID situation in India as we see today.
Great to hear that. Thank you so much for sharing that. Great to hear. I will come back to my friend Salil again. Salil, as I said in the beginning, Boeing does not need any introduction. This is one company which is strong both in civil as well as in defense. It has overlapping uh, interest in aerospace, which cut across different streams. If I may ask you, what is the overlap you would see aviation with defense manufacturing in India? Industry is waiting to see that synergy because that is what will bring cooperation stronger between US and India. It has been discussed for some time. Progress has been made, slow and steady progress. Do you believe now time has come for a takeoff in this synergy between defense and civil aerospace manufacturing?
Yeah, I think that's a very important question because this is what makes the Indian market and the Indian capability unique. If you take a step back and you look at India, as it relates to foreign cooperation and integration with global supply chains, India is one of the most important defense markets in the world. We already know this, and is one of the largest investors in defense in the world. We already know this in terms of its defense budget. And so whether it's domestic equipment or foreign, it'll be one of the largest acquirers of equipment in the world. It is also going to be, within a few years, the third largest civil aviation market in the world. And that's a very unique combination because many other countries in the world, of course, China is a huge market for defense and civil, but it doesn't import things for defense. It only makes its own. And civil, it's very large. That's fine. There's many other countries that are very large defense markets, but their civil markets are not nearly as large as India. India is unique in that both markets are absolutely massive. And that means that India's capability to serve those markets and manufacture in those markets must become equally significant. So that leads us to the point of the synergy. And people have been looking for that synergy for a while, but I think we're at an inflection point now where that synergy is going to become more and more important. And there's a couple of reasons for that. One is that as India's fleet matures over time, on the civil side, there will be more need for maintenance, repair, and overhaul to happen in India. Over the past year and a half, 2 years, the government has taken key decisions to reduce taxation and increase the ease of doing business for maintenance, repair, and overhaul in India. Now, why is that important for defense? Well, it's important for defense because if you look around the world, many of the largest maintenance shops for defense happen to also be in civil. As a matter of fact, many of them got their start in civil aviation, whether you're looking at Delta Tech Ops or even companies like Lufthansa Techniques or ST Aerospace in Singapore. And what that means is the scale efficiencies that come from doing civil work lend themselves to building capability and investing in your defense work. And this is why that's important, because in defense, there's usually only a few aircraft in the fleet, right? Even large fleets in defense might only have 30, 40, 50 aircraft in the fleet, whether you're talking about rotorcraft, helicopters, or fixed-wing aircraft. But in civil, there's thousands of a type in a fleet. And so that scale allows you to spread your fixed costs in such a way that you can make defense maintenance more cost-effective and provide better and more inexpensive solutions in country, in India, for the Indian Defense Services. So that importance of scale coming to MRO is going to be important to doing defense MRO more effectively and more efficiently in India. So that's the MRO side of things. And this will be important whether you're talking about fighters or derivative aircraft in India, like the P-8Is that we have here with the Navy, or the C-17s we have with the Air Force and other aircraft. The other element of defense civil synergy is on the manufacturing side. It's very, very important, again, to have that scale. If you have a manufacturer that's just focused on defense, when that defense program perhaps reaches an inflection point or ends, you might see a dip in work for that manufacturer. But civil aircraft have very long lives and very stable production runs that go for many years. And so that base load of work can bring a tremendous amount of scale to a supplier in India. And again, that allows them to quote defense work more inexpensively and allows them to be more efficient in their defense work and more competitive, and ultimately grow in both civil and defense. So in both sides, the scale that comes from civil and defense synergy is absolutely critical to creating this ecosystem that I talked about earlier in India for a defense industrial base.
That was a very interesting perspective. You talked about scale. Defense and civil have a different scale altogether. One scale comes from civil, where numbers are large. In defense, numbers will generally be smaller in terms of aircraft being manufactured. Generally, we talk in dozens, 24, 36, 48, whereas in the civil, we talk in hundreds. And therefore, scale economies brought in by civil manufacturing can be applied to defense manufacturing. Very well put, Salil. Thank you so much. That brings me back to Ravi. Ravi, what are the new areas do you think where collaboration can happen between the two countries? What do you think, where can we go from here? We know that you are very strong. BA is very, very strong in artilleries. Everyone knows that. There has already been certain cooperation between the two countries in that field. Where do you think we can go from here?
So, SP, I would say that the US-India relationship has a very, very positive future. And the reason I say that is because sometime back, US and India signed the GSOMA agreement that was about in 2002. But then in the last few years, we have signed multiple agreements, foundational agreements, I should say. One is the LIMOA, which allows the US-India to provide logistical support for each other's fighter planes, warships, and personnel. Then we signed COMCESA in 2018, which allows us to share sensitive communication equipment encryption technology to transfer real-time operational information. And then recently we signed ISA, which is an annex to GSOMA. It's an industry security annex, which allows a company like BAE to share classified information with an Indian company not just the Indian government. And then last year, we signed BECA, which allows us to share geospatial and numerical data on target behavior. So this foundational agreement is going to open up newer markets between US and India. And I think this is the time for us to kind of leverage into those areas and kind of broaden this partnership. And as you said earlier, SP, US declared India as a major defense partner, which enables them to receive defense technology on par with the allies. So that's a big plus. So when you go for an export license, you're going to get it much easier than what you used to get before. And then the last thing is the DDTI, the Defense Technology and Trade Initiative, which has been going on for a long time. But just recently, we signed the statement of intent, and which is going to kickstart this approach as well. So the bottom line I want to say, SP, is it's time for us to move from a partnership of convenience to a partnership of commitment. Thank you.
Fantastic, fantastic. What a wonderful way to put it. From partnership of convenience to partnership. This is true partnership. This is fantastic. I will remember this phrase, and I know it's your copyright. With giving you proper credit, I am going to quote this. Thank you.
Absolutely. Yes.
Salil, the interesting question which has come from you, it has come from the audience. You have so many companies in your supply chain in India. How do you embed sustainability? It so happens that I head the Group Sustainability Council for Mahindra Group for entire range of companies, all 12 sectors. I did not realize that someone will ask this question. How do you embed sustainability in your supply chain?
Yeah. So I guess the question they're asking, I assume, is about sustainability in a few areas. I assume they're talking about resilience and long-term sustainability of manufacturing and not environmental sustainability. Do you think that's what the question is? I just want to make sure I answer the right question.
Yes, yes.
Yeah. So sustainability has many meanings these days. So as it relates to sustainability in the supply chain, look, as we think about where we are coming out of, globally, we're going through this fourth wave now in India of COVID-19, which is truly tragic. But eventually we will come out of this. And what the lessons that we will learn coming out of this will be that resilience in the supply chain is as important as efficiency in the supply chain. In order to have a sustainable supply chain over the long term, you have to have both of those things. And I think there's many people who feel, there have been many studies that have done on this, that we might have over-rotated a little bit, as not just our industry, but every industry, in the pursuit of efficiency and not having enough diversity in the supply chain to ensure resilience. And I think the expansion of our supply chain in India helps us build that resilience because we are able to put into place protocols to ensure business continuity. We're able to, even now in this current lockdown, many of our plants are safely operating in India. And that resilience, that continued viability, even in difficult, challenging times, means that we can count on the integrity of the supply chain, especially the pieces of it in India. When you combine that resilience with the efficiency and the savings that come from doing the work in India, then you have a truly sustainable supply chain.
Perfect. Very well put, and I am sure our gentleman from the audience got it. So that brings us to close of our time. We started 5 minutes late, but we are glad that we are able to close it on time. To summarize, what I heard from both my esteemed partners, Ravi and Salil, PA and Wing, we are off to a takeoff point in including the Defense Secretary, have committed to continuation of elevating the defense partnership top of it, something very topical. Today, even in fighting pandemic, and it is a war on pandemic. Defense is a war, and today we are fighting a war on pandemic, corona. US is providing much needed support today, for which we appreciate and we are grateful. Our fight against the pandemic, our defense cooperation, and coming together in of the tripod, which will enhance the trust and partnership between our two nations. With that, we close this session. Thank you so much, Ravi. Thank you so much, Salil. And thank you, IMC, for hosting this session. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Now, when we talk about ideas, we talk about growth. And this session was all about it. And now, ladies and gentlemen, it's time to move ahead for yet another informative session. Ladies and gentlemen, the name of the session is Knowledge Economy, Education and Skill Across Boundaries. The session will focus on how universities and higher education across the world will adapt to challenges of adopting dynamic curriculum to keep pace with constantly changing requirement of skill sets, and how students exchange program between universities in India and the US will help create talent pool equipped with skills to drive economic growth in both countries. Ladies and gentlemen, we are moving ahead with the session, and I would just like to request once again to all our wonderful participants to please view or download all speaker profiles from the lobby. And now, please allow me to introduce you all to this moderator, Mr. Samir Somaya, Chairman KD Somaya Education Trust, Chairman and Managing Director, Godavari Biofineries Limited. And our wonderful panelist for this session is Dr. Suhas Pednekar, Vice Chancellor, University of Mumbai, Ms. Anjali Raina, Executive Director, Harvard Business School India Research Center. Ladies and gentlemen, if at all you have any kind of questions during the session, all you need to do is just click on the Ask Question button that you see on your screen, and your question would be directed directly to the moderator. And now, I would request the moderator to take over the session. Thank you, sir.
Thank you so much for giving this opportunity. Thank you, Dr. Pednekar. Thank you, Anjali Raina here for being and joining us today for this wonderful session. Very good evening to all of you here from India, and a good morning to all of you from the US. Nice to have you here. Welcome.
It's a pleasure to be here with you.
Thank you. Thank you, Anjali.
Thank you,
Dr. Pednekar.
good evening and good morning to everyone in US.
Okay. Let me start. We are living, even if it is a platitude that we are living in a world of constant change, but nowhere have we seen this change so radical, so disruptive, and so difficult as we are seeing, living, and experiencing right now. Education is one of the pillars on which societies learn from the past and prepare themselves better for the future. And I think this panel is extremely important, and the fact that it brings two wonderful people for us to discuss this. My first question is, we keep hearing about this word, the new normal, and we are all hoping for when this new normal is going to return. But you're not going to return to a new normal, you're going to reach a new normal. And in the world of education, behaviors have been changed, and we have transformed to delivering education digitally. What do you think is the future of education? Do you think it's going to be online, offline, a hybrid of the two? May I ask Dr. Pednekar to take that question first?
Yes, thank you very much. for giving me this opportunity to discuss about some of the important issues. We all know that the educational institutions are the integral part of society, and they are expected to establish that dynamic equilibrium with society with respect to economic, social, and environmental perspective. Today, yes, we are going through a very challenging situation, and it has changed all equations. And I would say the most badly affected sector is education. And now the time has come for all of us to take a pause and understand as how and where we are going to go from here. Therefore, what I can say with the current situation of COVID-19 pandemic, the future is going to change rapidly and drastically as far as the education is concerned. I'm talking about more of higher education. It is not going to be the same. It is expected to be more of hybrid or the blended form, along with the online education will also take off from here. And we need to prepare ourselves. In fact, at least in India, I would say many were not ready and prepared to go online mode. And probably everybody thought that, yes, it may take some more years till we can catch up with maybe developed countries as far as the digital education is concerned. But because of this COVID-19 situation, last 1 year, everywhere, I would say people are going through the challenging time, and we have rather adopted that online mode. But there are limitations, no doubt. If I get times later, we will discuss about it. But the future belongs to blended learning, where technology will play an important role. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Pednekar. Madam Anjali Raina, your comments, please.
Thank you very much for this question, Samir. It's really amazing to see how the pandemic has driven so much change in behavior. At Harvard alone, we have seen that we had 29 million extra signups. We used to have 81 million people using our online education portal. This last year, it went up to 110 million. In India, we've seen Byju's, which is known for online education. We saw 64 plus million Byju's apps downloaded. Upgrad, which is another fabulous company in the online space, had over 1 million registered users last year. So what we've seen is that there's been a behavior change, and this behavior change is driving a change in attitude. Exactly as Suhash Saab has said, there is going to be an embracing of digital learning in a way that is unprecedented. Usually, attitude changes behavior, but this is one example in the marketing world of behavior changing attitude. There are 4 things that will shape this new world. One is the scale. Online learning, next-gen online learning, can be scaled by algorithms. So you can have quality teachers, which so far have always been a constraint on education, reaching many more students, and grading, correcting of papers, evaluation, reach can all be helped by these digital algorithms. The second is that artificial intelligence and analytics-driven students support and teaching. So the student can be told, if any of you have done these online classes like many of us have now, the artificial intelligence lets you know which other people have made similar comments, have made different comments, and this improves the student experience in a way that is absolutely extraordinary. The other thing is that we are used to, in the field of education, to have 1 degree and then it's done. You do your undergraduate, you do your postgraduate, or so on. But the whole concept of credentials, like think about a shampoo sachet. Earlier, there used to be big shampoo bottles, and then somebody came out with the concept of buying a 1 rupee sachet or buying a 1 rupee Haldiram ka bhujia ka packet. Education credentials are becoming like that through digital education. So this whole concept of credentializing and certification rather than a one and done degree helps lifelong learning. This will be the third change. And the fourth change is that education is one sector which has not really embraced digital. We have very little investment in edtech. And in the last year, we saw an enormous increase in this. This opportunity of edtech, the hyphenated digital entering technology, will transform education. However, what we have to remember is that eventually education is about learning. And pedagogy in this digital space has to also keep space with it. At Harvard, we have a hybrid classroom, but that hybrid classroom provides a fantastic experience to the students. But we did 60 prototypes, 60 experiments before we reached a situation where we were satisfied with that experience. Similarly, pedagogy in this digital space has to experiment. If you can buy something on Amazon or watch a Netflix in an easy way, then how can education also be that interesting? That is something that we as teachers and educators have to spend time thinking about. So according to me, this is a huge opportunity that is offered to us.
Thank you. Thank you, Anjali. As we do this transformation, I run a lot of schools and also higher education. And we teach students in various demographic backgrounds. Some are in tribal India, some are in, learning in Marathi medium, Kannada medium, Gujarati medium, English medium, Hindi medium. So you have a range of, and a lot of this new online content, of course, you see Khan Academy doing Hindi and other languages, and many are. But, here we come across a digital bridge or a digital divide or a digital highway. Dr. Pednekar, would you like to respond to, what Anjali Raina talked about in terms of a digital bridge and an opportunity to scale learning and reach where today you've not been reached? Are there any pitfalls as we do this scaling? Is it a digital divide or is it a digital bridge?
Well, this is a very important question, Dr. Samir. And as I said, we need to do some homework and some research now. Considering the entire education system in India, I'm talking about the situation here. See, the COVID-19 effect, or maybe you can call it as a post-COVID, what is going to be the situation, that will vary from country to country, depending upon, I would say, the economic, education, and social structures of the countries. As far as India is concerned, it is going to work in both the ways, and we need to understand that. As we know, when there are challenges and difficulties at the same time, it is also said that that gives you opportunities too. And we need to understand that and how we can take this as an opportunity and use technology to propagate education so that we can even reach out to those who rather remain out of this system of education. We were deprived in the past and can be done in a digital manner through online as well as through blended learning. But at the same time, we must also understand the reality in our country. For example, my university, which is one of the largest in the country and which is spread over 7 districts with complete heterogeneity in terms of right from urban to semi-urban to rural to semi-rural to even tribal areas. And last 1 year, I have been experiencing the impact of this digital teaching learning in a bigger way. And what I see that if we as educationists and the government does not take proper course of action, there is a fear that that might lead to digital divide. Divide will widen. The digital divide will widen. And we are already witnessing that. In fact, this year in University of Mumbai, the enrollment has declined. And we try to understand why. And one of the reasons we realize that there are some families which either cannot afford to have the technology or those especially who are living hand to mouth, they're unable to, even because of the COVID situation where the economics of their families being affected badly. They do not have even the regular fees to pay, and therefore their dropout rate has increased. So we need to be very careful when we talk about, because as it is, not only we are talking about the I would say the economic capacity of the families, but even the finances of universities and colleges have gone down. That is even badly affected because of the current COVID situation. So on one hand, to maintain the quality and give them proper technology, and on the other hand, to take care of those even who will not remain deprived of education is going to be a real challenge. So it is going to be, I would say, a collaborative efforts where all the stakeholders should come together, and at least the country like ours, where I feel the topmost priority has to be given to education, to find the way out as how we can go ahead with the current situation, and even after that, whatever the situation would be, and how in a greater way we can use this technology meaningfully. Otherwise, that is going to impact badly, because you know that entire education cannot be imparted only through online, especially the science and technology, where there are a lot of components of with experiments involved in laboratories, and somehow we are managing, but the whole education may get diluted. On the other hand, uh, there would be many who would remain deprived. So this is a real challenging task for all of us, I feel, to come forward, and the priority has to be given to education, because ultimately we know the education is the only profession which creates other profession. So we have to consider even education as the essential services. And even the other day we had a meeting with our honorable minister, and I talked about it, that now the time has come even to consider education as the essential services. And because ultimately all other services, which are available today, they're the outcome of the education system only. Thank you.
So, education as the essential service that creates all other fields, vocations, and knowledge systems. Well put, Dr. Pednekar. And you have told us about the risk of widening the digital divide. And Anjali Raina has told us about the opportunity of bridging the inequities in education that have been there so far. I think the challenge will be, how do you really bridge between these two worlds, the digital divide and the highway, in a sense, and how we come together. Whichever way you look at it, our opinion is that the world has changed, and a large section of people, in fact the whole world, has now learned to consume information on small bits on telephones, deliver them on computers, and even share electronic gadgetry if it must. And of course, as Dr. Pednekar pointed out very importantly, some have been completely deprived and left out, and we cannot leave, there should not be anybody left behind. But the world has changed. And Anjali Raina talked about how Harvard went from 80 million to 110 million people using their online system. That's an incredible number. The question here which comes to us is, how would the Indian new education policy facilitate the transition, or would the regulator enable the transition? I think in the US, if I may first ask Anjali Raina, because you talked about 100 million people, which is not imaginable for us. Does the regulator enable you to be able to service more? Is it something that the university decides on itself? Is there something you can throw light on?
So, Samir, let me answer this tangentially. The 100 million users are from around the world.
Right.
They're not restricted to the United States. That is the whole advantage of online learning, that the best quality education can be made available to the remotest corner of the world, provided the pipes exist, the digital pipes, which is what the leaders, the stakeholders need to put in place. And so I would talk further on what Suhash Saab was saying, that the empathy for the deprived, for those left behind, needs to be felt. Unless we feel for those people and design systems that takes everybody along, this will not, the inequity will continue, because the inequity is not based in digital or in physical. Even in a physical school, there are some people where the school facilities are good and some where the school facilities are bad. And those who do not have empathy for the schools in the remotest regions and the fact that there is no toilet or there is no running water or it's far for a person to reach cannot understand that a child who is hungry cannot study. And that is why the South Indian schools have done so well, because the ministers there understood that a hungry child cannot study, and therefore they provided the midday meal scheme, which has worked so well. That was empathy. What is the midday meal parallel in the digital world? It is the pipe. We are all living in remote parts of the country where there is no internet, where the signal goes. We are all living in remote parts of the country where the phones do not work. If we are going to provide digital education, we need to make that pipe, that highway available, and our country can do it. We are fantastic at this. And it means that private people, industrialists, people like you and me, also need to put our hands out. The government, we can't leave everything to the government. There's also an opportunity, because for the first time we are seeing a huge investment in global edtech, 3 times greater than the average 6 months of VC investment in the prior decade. So startups and entrepreneurs are entering this space, and entrepreneurs and startups can provide solutions to the biggest problems in the world. So if we can let and unleash that energy, they can find these solutions. The other thing is that our existing institutions do not invest enough in digital. Less than 5% of college budgets are dedicated to IT spending. It is tragic to think that there's such underinvestment in the world of the future. And if we change the investment, we can actually increase the reach of our teachers. I'm from IIM Calcutta, and almost 15 years ago, the IIMs introduced schools which were digital. The professor would lecture to a number of people, but people didn't embrace it. And the technology was not good enough, it was patchy. If we can make that happen, the digital divide does not need to exist. But the digital divide cannot be bridged unless we all have empathy for the underdog, unless we all morally want to take everybody along. This health scare that we have is because we have failed in our moral duty to look at the underfunding of health. And if we place the same underfunding in education, we will face a tragedy 10 years down the road. So the digital divide is a real divide, which can only be bridged through investment and through empathy on the part of all stakeholders.
Thank you. Dr. Pednekar, what she has pointed out is that actually the divide is real, it's physical, only accentuated by the current crisis. And to build the bridge, we have to all, the haves have to reach out such that we try to reduce the inequities that exist. But back to the point, Anjali Raina started by giving examples of Byju's. And also, if you look at Coursera and edX, these are worldwide platforms for the MOOCs, where they are actually being able to find demand because students are hungry for knowledge. My question to you, Dr. Pednekar, is again, we've read about the new national education policy, and you have the UGC. The NEP has given very visionary thought process and thought leadership going forward. How would the UGC enable Indian institutions to be able to also reach remote corners of India, and why only India, all over the world? Do you see the UGC playing how do you see them playing a positive role to enable us so that we can say that we have 1 billion people looking at what we're doing? Yeah, 5 minutes to go is what I've been told, Dr. Petnekar.
Yes. Now, I would say that the central government has taken a fantastic initiative to announce the new higher education policy 2020 and giving a lot of autonomy and freedom. And the whole concept is, in fact, that is transformation from regulators to facilitator. And that exactly what the country needs. Today, as the Vice Chancellor, I can tell you, there are several barriers we have to go through, and the whole process gets delayed. And I'm happy that the UGC, AICT, and the central government together, they're coming out with the solution to that. And that exactly is required in the country like ours, is such a, I would say, integration and heterogeneity in our own country. And to promote the education and to increase the gross enrollment ratio, which is in fact not matching with the world standard, which is somewhere around 30%, and till 2035 is expected to 50%. If at all were to match and to reach to that figure, we have to adopt online teaching, blended mode, every possible way, and to ensure that the technology will be used meaningfully. And secondly, in fact, one more thing I'm happy that NEP 2020 has come out with is that ABC, that Academic Bank of Credit, where the students will be given opportunities to choose what they want rather than we insisting on them to take up something, so that they can go on accumulating credits, not only from one institute, they might go to any other institute, accumulate the credits, and once they complete the requisite number, that degree can be granted. And that will even make our education available to even the students from outside country. So what is required is to bridge some of those gaps which were rather responsible why we were going through this difficult time. And secondly, I would say the future, it is going to be a lifelong learning. So anybody can take up education at any time, earn credit, and can complete degree without any giving, without we giving them stipulated time. And that we need to encourage. Thank you.
So we have to wrap up in a minute. I think there was a meeting of minds among the speakers. We all understand that change is upon us. It's disruptive. It has brought opportunities to bridge the digital divide. We need empathy and we need determination to bridge that so that we can also increase the gross enrollment ratio and make sure that education, as said, is the basis of all other vocations, so that in small crises and in large, we create the education, the knowledge, the research and informed policy so that we are ready for any crisis that we face in the future. We make for a stronger country and a better world. Thank you so much for joining us today. It's a pleasure to have you here. Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Petnekar. Thank you, Anjali Raina.
Thank you. It was a pleasure.
Thank you, everyone, for your wonderful time. We thoroughly enjoyed the session. I wish we could go on, but time is difficult to hold. And having said that, let me tell you, ladies and gentlemen, it's time to move on to our last session, valedictory session. Ladies and gentlemen, now in the interest of time, a gentle reminder once again, I will request participants to please view or download all speakers' profile from the lobby. And now, please allow me to invite our session moderator, Mr. Richard M. Rosso, Wadhwani Chair in US-India Policy Studies, the Center for Strategic and International Studies. And now, ladies and gentlemen, I feel extremely humbled to invite our next guest of honor. His Excellency Mr. Taranjeet Singh Sandhu, Ambassador of India to United States, Embassy of India. His Excellency Ambassador Mr. Timothy Romer, Executive Director and Strategic Counselor at APCO Worldwide. And ladies and gentlemen, once again, if at all you have any question, all you need to do is just click on the button that you see on your screen which says Ask Question, and your question will be directed directly to the moderator. And now, I would request our session moderator to please take over the session, sir.
Great. Well, thank you, and thanks to the IMC Chamber for having me here, the Ministry of External Affairs, the U.S.-India Strategic Partnership Forum. Of course, as any broad spectrum relationship like you see between the United States and India, there's constantly going to be ups and downs happening, but over the last 25 years, I think we all have to agree unconditionally that the overall trajectory has certainly been up across multiple areas of our relationship. Our companies are hungry for the opportunities that exist in the other markets. Our security interests see increasingly spaces of overlap, and that's driven, a much more powerful defense relationship. And underpinning it all, you've got those people-to-people connections. And most notably, I think, the fact that so many Indians, they themselves or family members, have had exposure to the United States, and hopefully, of course, getting more Americans to get exposure to India. So a lot of great things happening, but I think we've got two of the best people we could imagine to help us unpack where the relationship is at today, and maybe some insights as to where it might go in the future. With Ambassador Sandhu and Ambassador Tim Romer. Ambassador Sandhu, of course, many of you are extremely familiar, one of India's most distinguished diplomats, a range of posts in Delhi and around the world, including High Commissioner in Sri Lanka, but also multiple times posted here in Washington, D.C. And, it's been, I think, an incredible bookend for him to have sown the seeds, I think, in terms of this, astounding transformation of the relationship, being here, in a more junior role earlier on and now coming back as ambassador. So now pursuing ever higher levels of cooperation. Ambassador Romer has had several unique contributions, I think, to U.S.-India relations. Of course, spending time as a member of Congress, then posting as ambassador to India for the United States administration from 2009 to 2011, and now really helping underpin that commercial relationship from this role that he's got at APCO Associates, helping companies find new market opportunities across the region there. So I'll ask both of our speakers to offer maybe 5 to 7 minutes, and then I got a few questions that I want to tee up to try to draw out some big ideas. But thanks again to our great speakers. And Ambassador Sandhu, the floor is yours, sir.
Thank you, Rick. A pleasure to speak with you and Ambassador Romer at the valedictory session of Indo-US Partnership Vision Summit. Let me extend my special appreciation to IMC Chamber of Commerce and USISPF that have put together this excellent program over the last 2 days. There have been a number of eminent speakers from government and industry, both from United States and India, and I'm confident that these conversations will advance our partnership at this critical time. I'm happy to be on this virtual stage with two friends, both of whom I've known for a long time. Rick, again, as he mentioned, I've known him from my previous stint, and Ambassador Romer, who's of course a well-known name both in India and as a congressman in the United States. It's a pleasure to be with both of you. As you are all aware, we are going through a difficult time. Our deepest sympathies to all of you who may have been impacted or may have lost a family member. India's caseload is very high, and we hope that in these challenging times, through strategies at home and with little help from our friends and partners abroad, especially in the United States, we will be able to turn the tide. In this difficult hour, the United States has reached out to India. Our healthcare partnership with the US was always extraordinary, and the President himself has noted, just as we stood with the US in the early part of the pandemic, the United States is standing with us now. Over the last 2 days, the first 2 consignments of US medical supplies have reached India, and more are on their way. This partnership in action. Over the last year, India and United States collaborated on ensuring the integrity of medical supply chains, providing essential medicines and PPEs at the time of most need. And under our science and technology partnership, around 6 vaccines for COVID are under development. I'm well aware that to an audience such as this, the India-US partnership needs no specific introduction. Over the last 2 decades, political ties have come of age, founded on strong bipartisan support. I myself have witnessed how the relations have transformed from my time as a congressional officer in the 90s to today. The energy in the relationship has bolstered our cooperation across multiple sectors, from defense and security to energy and education. There is hardly an area of human activity in which our 2 countries do not work together. This engagement continues on an upward trajectory with new administration. Prime Minister Modi and President Biden have spoken on 3 occasions. There have also been summit-level interactions at Quad as well as on climate change recently. While fighting the pandemic will be the most urgent priority for the partnership, there are also other important dimensions: the energy partnership, particularly renewable energy and climate change, the knowledge and education partnership, the tech and innovation partnership, and the defense and strategic partnership. Each of these fields represent not only in areas of G2G cooperation, but expanding economic opportunities in building real values for both our countries. Despite the challenges of the pandemic, the economic reforms that India is undertaking will help drive bilateral cooperation. COVID-19 exposed the acute vulnerability of supply chains. Restructuring of these chains is underway, and India is keen to tap this opportunity to increase its participation in global value chains, such as through the production-linked incentives, that is the PLI schemes, which have been announced in 13 key sectors. The PLI scheme is expected to create many positive externalities, benefits accruing to the entire economy. Let me add here that the last year has been a tremendous learning experience. What is clear is that we are all in this together. Our global challenges, whether in pandemic control or climate change, need urgent solutions that require countries to work together quickly and effectively. India and the United States have always stood shoulder to shoulder in these efforts, and I'm confident that we will overcome this present challenge with determination and resilience. Thank you.
Thank you, Ambassador Sandhu. Ambassador Romer, the floor is yours.
First of all, thank you, Rick, for hosting us today with your great moderating, and I'm sure sharp questions coming up. I want to thank Rajiv Podar, the president of IMC Chamber of Commerce and Industry, for helping put this together and host this event. And I want to send my warm regards to Ambassador Sandhu. I enjoy our frequent talks, our lunches together, and the people of America, our hearts, our prayers, our actions go out to you and the people in India, our dear friends, for what you're going through with the COVID crisis today. What I'd like to do with my time, Rick, if it's okay with you, is I'd like to make 5 points about, there are actually 5 testaments to the global comprehensive partnership that the United States has with the Republic of India. First of all, the first point is India's crisis is America's crisis. I know President Biden had a conversation with Prime Minister Modi in the last couple days and said that we would provide oxygen-related supplies, vaccine materials, and therapeutics, and that the U.S. supply of AstraZeneca would be shared with India. That has started in deliveries and airlifts on Thursday, and I'm sure are hitting the ground and hopefully helping the Indian people as we speak. The American private sector and businesses are stepping up with donations, more medical supplies, and ventilators for hospitals. Secretary Blinken participated in a call this week with US IBC, the Chamber, and a host of businesses, encouraging more assistance, more resources, more US help to the people of India. This is a steady and steadfast start, and more will come. We are hopeful that with America's leadership and partnership, the UK, Germany, France, South Korea, Japan, and others will also pitch in. This is a global concern. And as this variant mutates and spreads to other parts of Asia, this is a world crisis. Second point, learning from history's lessons, deepening and maturing the Quad. The Quad started with great credit in 2004 by Republican President George W. Bush. It was an answer to the tsunami which devastated parts of Southeast Asia. 4 countries came together to improve our response to natural disasters with better coordination, enhanced equipment, supply delivery, and cooperation across governments. Today is a new challenge. Today, as SARS and COVID and other pandemics to follow will threaten our health in both India and the United States, let us expedite efforts to work together on biosecurity, health, vaccine development for the next pandemic. Making this an operational goal and accomplishment for the Quad would be significant. Expanding this from defense and foreign policy issues with the Quad, and President Biden's emphasis on the Quad with his first virtual meeting with the principals there, we need now to take these next steps. Third, the forest, not the trees. I've spent 25 years working on Capitol Hill as a Senate staffer, a member of Congress, and a diplomat briefing members about India. Congress has a tendency in our legislative branch to pay critical and particular attention to crises that pop up on the radar. It might be a trade or economic protectionist issue. It might be a local constituent having problems with travel or a terror attack abroad. I know many people on the Hill are paying close attention to the CATSA issue, known more commonly as India purchasing Russian S-400s and facing potential sanctions. I encourage President Biden to work with Congress. We have sent a signal to India about our concern. Let us move beyond and through this. Let us extend the waiver, continue to prioritize our relationship with India. We know India is not going to buy every single defense procurement issue from the United States. So let's get through this and let's encourage Congress to do this in the right way in a bipartisan manner and put this behind us. We see the rise of Russia and China in an axis moving forward, and that's deeply concerning. Fourth, unfulfilled dreams. Economic trade relations between India and the United States are in need of a jolt, an awakening, a vital breakthrough. When so much is potentially out there, supply chains now moving around the world, and many of them wanting to move out of China, the potential here for the United States and India to move together and coordinate this is monumental. We also see a host of other things in e-commerce, digital trade. The ambassador mentioned climate issues and clean energy. These issues coming together present historical opportunities for the United States and India to break through on technology cooperation and set standards around the world for new partnerships on the economy and trade. Let us take advantage of that soon. And lastly, the great game expanded. President Trump announced a May 1st deadline for the United States troops to pull out of Afghanistan. President Biden has decided to extend that to September 11th. When I was U.S. ambassador in India, President Obama asked me to travel to Afghanistan and work with India and the Afghan government to get India more involved in a regional issue there where India committed money, resources, people to helping the Afghan people through a very difficult time. They invested in building the parliament, energy issues, women empowerment issues, and put about $2 billion in the pipeline. We hope this will continue. A regional peace settlement in that area is what is needed to make sure that area stays stable and peaceful and hopefully prosperous in the future. So with that, Rick, let me turn it over to your questions. And again, thank the hosts today, and again, extend America's prayers and actions to the people of India.
Well, thanks for that. Some big issues you put on the table that we'll dig into a little bit more. I want to start with COVID, and ask both of you a question kind of related to that. For Ambassador Romer, it felt last week like it was taking an eternity as we began to see this kind of mount the crisis in India, and for the United States to come out with an announcement of kind of an effective response. So that's for people like me that kind of live in the US-India lane, where every day when you don't see something that you want, it feels like an eternity. What is it like, on the inside to see these things kind of spin up? Our responses, is it kind of normal to kind of expect things to move really fast, or is there always going to be a bit of a gap the way that the wheels of government work in trying to look at? So I wonder if you can help us unpack a little bit that quiet week last week, and of course the enormous, shoveling of great ideas and support that we've seen this week.
Rick, when we read and we see in America that our friends, family members in India are experiencing what they are, 379,000 cases per day of COVID, 3,645 deaths. We want to do something immediately. Next week's not good enough. Next month is certainly not good enough. We want to help now. Oftentimes, as the ambassador knows, as much as we want to help, there are sometimes bureaucratic roadblocks. The Defense Production Act, intellectual property issues for pharmaceutical companies, getting the coordination of landing rights when we're airlifting supplies into India. This takes too much time. And we hope to learn lessons from this on both sides, so that in the future, as we deepen our cooperation with India bilaterally, as we improve the Quad and how India, Australia, Japan, and the United States can better coordinate these kinds of efforts, money, supplies, vaccines. How do we do this more seamlessly and more helpfully to the host countries that we're delivering assistance to? And there's also, as Ambassador Sandhu knows, there's also sensitivities for a host government. We have to get approval through them as well, too. I remember when we lived in Delhi, we wanted to get aid up to Ladakh. There had been a horrific landslide up there. There had to be aid given. The United States wanted to deliver aid immediately, and it took several days for us to get approval through the Indian government and the money cut through the State Department to deliver it. So let's get better at this. Let's learn lessons here. Let's deepen the Quad on these kinds of biosecurity and healthcare issues. And let's try to make sure that we help India now as rapidly, as effectively, and as successfully as we can.
Yeah. Well, Ambassador Sandhu, let me ask the ultimate practical question. I think for a lot of us, the request that we're getting right now, is from companies and individuals. Where can they best deploy their own, resources, staffing, things like that? We've seen big announcements the last couple of days from Walmart and Google and Deloitte and things like that, in addition to what the federal government's doing. But any practical thoughts for those companies and individuals in the United States that want to do something to contribute? What are the most urgent needs right now where we can play the most useful role?
Sorry, can you hear me now?
Yeah, I hear you. Yep.
Thank you, Rick. I'm not going to get into the aspect of the timing. I can certainly mention to you that we were in touch through and through, and we have been cooperating very much on the ball, as they say. Secondly, as far as the US business is concerned, I must underline my appreciation for the swift response by the US industry. Over the last 2 weeks, we have had tremendous outpouring of support with companies, as you have mentioned, big, small, offering assistance. The US Chamber of Commerce, they announced the Global Task Force on Pandemic Response. The Secretary of State took the meeting. Then there is USISPF, USIBC, Roundtable, leading US companies. They have been working closely with the US government. Basically, what I want to mention to you is that we have been also sharing with them what are the practical requirements which we need. Right now, oxygen is one focus. Then, of course, therapeutics, particularly remdesivir. So we are in close touch with Gilead. And other companies are also chipping in. You have seen a number of announcements. All of them are going in to help broadly in these areas. And I also want to mention to you that there is an internal capacity. And you are aware that just in the recent past, India did its bit because our understanding is very clear regarding with this pandemic. This is a global pandemic. And it has been going up and down in different countries and different continents. So whether the first wave in India and the second wave, or what happens in Europe or what happens in US, these strains, this is going to be a constant fight. And in this, the cooperation between United States and India across different boards, especially in the medical side, which I mentioned to you in the healthcare, that is very, very critical. And in that sense, I just want to just give you a bit of the situation that, two particular variants, the UK and the double, what we are calling now double mutant. Their capacity, for example, if it was 9,000 cases earlier, it has reached, as the ambassador mentioned, to 350,000. That's the capacity it goes in multiplications. So therefore, what I'm trying to underline to you is that this is an exercise in togetherness. This, as I said in my speech, we have to come together and focus on taking care of this, because today it's in India, tomorrow it can be in other places also. So that's why the areas I've already mentioned to you, and we are continuously putting out through the chambers what are the immediate requirements. And we are hopeful, as I said, with our own internal strengths, plus also with our friends and partners like United States, we should be able to overcome this situation.
Yeah, thank you for that. Well, let's shift a little bit to economic cooperation. And Ambassador Sandhu, I'll start with you. I mean, it's looking at least pre-COVID, we saw, I think, the economic relationship kind of proceeding along two tracks. When you look at the numbers, trade and investment, at least pre-COVID, we're hitting all-time records. And in fact, India still is pulling in all-time records of foreign direct investment, even throughout the COVID period. And yet, clearly both governments, had been protectionist to some extent and driven by real reasons. The United States has the largest trade deficit in the world. India's got one of the largest as a percent of GDP. And, being responsive, I think, to voters and the electorate, it's a reasonable, kind of understanding there. But, at some point when the COVID pressures begin to relax and we look at economic cooperation, are there any threads or ideas that you think kind of hold the most promise that we should be focused on and really trying to press a lot of efforts for once we get back, on more of a normal track on engagement? So what does the upside on the economic relationship look like looking ahead?
See, Rick, as you yourself have said, right now, of course, our focus immediately is on coronavirus. And but at the same time, as you yourself have mentioned, that even in this COVID time, there has been major announcements of investments. In fact, we've seen the Facebook one, the Google, Qualcomm, Silver Lake, a whole lot of companies, many US venture funds. They have rolled out a new generation of applications within India. So I would broadly qualify in 4 baskets, if in very quickly I can mention. One, of course, is in healthcare. And in healthcare, there is also affordable medicines and affordable vaccines. Then, as far as the second basket, which is energy, And in that, if I can make it a very extensive, we have huge energy requirements. So LNG, renewables, solar, and of course, all this fall into climate change. That is the second basket. The third, I would say, is digital and IT. And in that also come innovation and startups. As you are aware that currently, because of the COVID situation and post-COVID, we are seeing the entire world is moving so quickly into digital. And therefore, innovation is going to be a very, very critical part. And last and not the least is what I would say is knowledge and education partnership. As in the earlier session, the Vice Chancellor of Mumbai University was mentioning, there is a tremendous scope here. Not only are the US universities looking at more Indian students, but also campus-to-campus relations. Under the new education policy, there is a tremendous opportunity for the two sides to get connected through innovative means. So campus-to-campus is one, also establishing through digital education, etc., and the research institutions.
That was some great big ideas. Ambassador Romer, I'll ask you the same. Any other areas that you want to add onto that list of spaces where we hope to pursue more positive areas of economic cooperation looking ahead?
The ambassador did a great job outlining, climate change and technology, energy, healthcare, biosecurity, digital trade. These are all ripe for the picking. And with the tremendous changes sweeping the world, this is the opportunity for the United States and India to devote the capacity, the resources, the politics to overcome some of this protectionism and break through with some agreements in these areas that are win-win propositions for both countries. They win in creating jobs in America when we sell LNG and gas turbines and C-17s for disaster relief equipment to India. And India benefits as well with their climate getting cleaner, with their response to disaster assistance improving, and with the deepening of the Quad and operationalizing what we're trying to do there in defense and biosecurity issues. So a lot of this, Rick, as you know, do we have the political capacity and the will to do this on both sides? Will the Modi and the Biden administration devote people on both sides to have some breakthroughs in these 3 or 4 areas? That's the key.
Well, we're down to our last 2 minutes, so let me wrap up by asking each of you, on the security relationship. Way too often we fall in the trap about talking about it as very much focused on China, and we all know the threats that we look at when we think about China. But trying to make it more well balanced too, and what are some of the areas of strategic cooperation that kind of get beyond there? So I wonder, as we head into the last 2 minutes of the session here, if you each might want to list off, are there when we think about security defense cooperation, what are some of the things outside the China lane that those of us on the outside should be taking a look at and maybe trying to offer up some thoughts and suggestions on? So Ambassador Sandhu, let me start with you on that. So any thoughts on that before we wrap up the session?
Rick, let me underline, India-US cooperation stands on its own footing. And it cannot be and should not be seen through a third country lens. Our comprehensive global strategic partnership, we have shared objectives. We face common challenges. Now, in addition to defense trade, our cooperation is also about more co-production, more co-development, more defense exercises, expanded frequency and scope, more military-to-military cooperation, more exchanges in bilateral and even multilateral formats, more industries in both India and US working together. I would say to chart out a more reliable supply chains in the next generation of defense technology areas, more joint R&D and innovation in new domains of defense cooperation. So therefore, I would say now even traditional threats like terrorism, but they're also falling into new challenging emerging areas like cybersecurity. And therefore, as close friends and partners, United States and India will be able to come together and meet these new challenges.
Yeah, that's terrific. Ambassador Romer, same question over to you. I mean, are there other threats that we should be cognizant and paying attention to and trying to look for spaces for cooperation?
Absolutely, yes, Rick. I think as we move forward, the people of India and the people of America we certainly see China through the same kind of geostrategic lens more and more. We also see the world and the values of human rights and rule of law and diversity, respect for other countries in a lot of the same lens. And that's where the United States and India can work together through the United Nations and peacekeeping operations and non-proliferation issues. We work together on the global domain and keeping freedom of navigation in the Indian Ocean open to all countries. That's an increasingly critical area for trade to go through. About 64% of world trade now goes through the Malacca Straits. And the United States and India and ASEAN countries are all united in preserving that. We want to work on counterterrorism issues together. Homeland security dialogue between the United States and India is robust and trusted and very fruitful. We want to work on anti-piracy efforts together. There is no limit to what the United States and India can do in cooperating. Again, it comes back to focusing on outcomes, operationalizing our relationship to see successes, and making sure the Quad comes up with some successes in the next 2 to 3 years.
Thanks. Well, we're a couple of minutes over and it's pretty late Indian Standard Time, so we'll have to wrap up here. But I'm so pleased that for the rest of you, you got to get a flavor of the sort of conversations that during normal times we all get to have over a cup of chai here in Washington, D.C. And hopefully those days are not too far away. So Ambassador Sandhu, Ambassador Romer, really a pleasure to speak to both of you. Clearly a tall agenda, an urgent agenda right now. Some longer term things to be working on, and a great agenda you've laid out. So thanks to you both.
Correct. Thank you, Ambassador. Stay healthy.
Thank you. Thank you, sir. Well, that was a wonderful session. And ladies and gentlemen, now we come to an end of this amazing session and an informative summit. I'm sure the summit was fruitful and enlightening as we promised to you. Ladies and gentlemen, lastly, please allow me to invite Mr. Dinesh Joshi, Chairman IMC International Business Committee for vote of thanks. Sir, over to you.
Thank you, Zeenat. A very good morning to friends from US and a good evening to friends from India. His Excellency Shri Taranjit Singh Sandhu, Ambassador of India to the United States of America, His Excellency Ambassador Timothy Romer, Mr. Rajiv Podar, President, IMC Chamber of Commerce and Industry, respected dignitaries on the virtual dais, and friends. Namaste. It is my honor to present the vote of thanks to this august audience. We have had wonderful virtual interactions since yesterday. The summit has been graced by Honorable Union Minister of India, Shri Nitin Gadkari ji, Honorable Chief Minister of Gujarat, Shri Vijay Rupani ji, Honorable Member of Parliament, Shri Jayant Sinha ji, Lieutenant Governor of Delaware, Madam Bethany Hall Long, our respected ambassadors, diplomats, and businessmen who spoke at the event. I thank you all. As the summit is rightly worded as the Indo-US Partnership Vision Summit, there can be no better time than this to strengthen our relations economically and politically with each other. Both our respected nations have and will be partners in progress. Topics of discussions clearly show the vision for synergy. The Biden administration and the Indian government are working very closely with each other and will define a new chapter for the future. On behalf of IMC Chamber of Commerce and Industry and myself, I would like to thank each one of you for being a part of this summit and making it successful. First of all, once again, I would like to thank Honorable Union Minister Shri Nitin Gadkari ji and our ambassadors for sparing their valuable time and speaking at the summit. I would also like to thank each and every speaker who attended various sessions and made us successful. Thanks to MEA Economic and Diplomacy Division to be our support partner and give us a logo support. I thank Dr. Mukesh Agi and his team at USISPF to be our summit partner. Thanks to our sponsor, powered by sponsors, Ascent Overseas Education, and to Mature Group USA for supporting this event. Thank you, ET Now, for being a broadcasting partner, and to all the friends in media for constantly supporting the IMC. The event would be incomplete without thanking the Summit Organizing Committee, our IBC Committee, and Team IMC, especially Mr. Sanjay Mehta, Vanita, Mr. Ajit Mangrulkar, Ms. Sheetal, and all at IMC. Thank you once again to each of you. Stay safe, stay healthy. Namaste.